I'd like to call this meeting to order. We have students from Navajo Elementary here. Would you please come forward, as we would love to have you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. They may say, please stand, so let's let them. I'm going to say, please stand. Please stand. Ready? Begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Red, white, and blue, we love you.
What a wonderful way to start our new year together. Let's have roll call. Dr. Patinsky, yes.
Matthew Patinsky.
Okay. Go ahead.
Amy Carney.
Mike Sharkey.
Karen, are you on?
Looks like she's waiting.
Waiting in the lobby.
Do we need to accept her arrival?
Yeah, it's on the screen. She's waiting.
Do I admit?
No, they should do that in the.
We're waiting to admit Karen Warner in our meeting. IT, can you hear us? Okay. Karen, if you can hear us, we're working on admitting you into the meeting. I'm Donna Lewis, and I'm present, and we're waiting still for Karen to come in. We'll wait, since the first part of the agenda is important, well, as they all are. There we go. Hi, Karen. We're doing roll call. Welcome. Karen, can you hear me? Karen, are you on? And Karen, we're telling you to unmute. Not sure if you have that button in front of you. Seeing that we have quorum, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next item. Karen, please let us know when you arrive. We realize that you're working on your technical piece. All right, that brings us to approval of the agenda. I'm going to remove 9F from the agenda. I think we have some communication clerical pieces to work out there, and so we want to do so well before we approve 9F. So we'll be removing 9F. I ask for any other amendments to the agenda. Did you want to? I'm sorry, Ms. Carney.
Thank you, President Lewis. Yes, I would like to pull 9G, please.
Okay.
And then I would also like to request that we move 10F before 10E, because the order of these items were swapped from what we were originally given, and it's important that the board have discussion and vote on the creation of a planning and boundary committee before voting on the Pima boundary public hearing.
Okay, so we have our agenda with 9G pulled, 9F pulled for action, 9G removed, 9F.
9F removed.
9F removed, 9G pulled for action, and the switching of 9E and
No, 10. It's
10F and
10F, yeah.
10E. Thank you. Good teamwork. All right. I make a motion to approve the agenda as I just presented.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It passes 4-0, and I'm just going to check to see if Karen's with us at this point. Okay, we'll move on. The meeting decorum is next. Citizens attending and/or participating in Scottsdale Unified School District meetings either in person, virtually, or telephonically are required to observe the same rules of order and decorum applicable to members of the governing board and staff. Unauthorized remarks or demonstrations from members of the audience, yells, outbursts, and/or other disruptions are not permitted. Thank you. All right, our first action item is election of governing board officers. I'm asking for nominations.
Can we swap it to wait till Ms. Carney or Ms. Werner is on?
You want
Are
to
we-
pause?
I'd rather her be here for it.
Okay.
Can we-
I think I'm getting head nods to pause.
Or
Shall we-
just go on, just go to.
Jennifer, is that all right?
Madam President, members of the governing board, you have approved the agenda as drafted. You could revisit that motion to move this item lower in the agenda and reapprove the agenda. I think that would be the best way to do that.
All right.
So what you would need would be a revised motion to approve the agenda as written, with this item coming perhaps after the information discussion items.
We could probably do it after student and staff recognitions, governing board reports, and superintendent comments. I'd like to move it after item 6.
That would be fine.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we revise the adopted agenda as modified with one more modification, and that is to move item 3 to below item 6.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, guys. All right, student and staff recognition and celebrations.
Well, good evening, President Lewis, Vice President Sharkey, members of the governing board, our SUSD families, friends, school leaders, teachers, and staff who are here for our first regular meeting of the 2026 calendar year. Many of our celebrations tonight recognize athletic championships and achievements from the end of last year, but we are excited to celebrate those publicly this evening. We are kicking off our celebrations with big athletic wins from both Desert Mountain and Chaparral High Schools, including history being made. To help us celebrate numerous SUSD Trailblazers, please join me in welcoming our athletic director, Steven Cervantes. Steven, can you turn the mic on? The little, that's it?
Okay, I'll start over again. Sorry about that. Thank you, Dr. Menzel, and good evening. President Lewis, Vice President Sharkey, governing board members, Dr. Menzel, and Ms. Wagner. Tonight, I'm honored to recognize an exceptional group of student athletes whose consistency, dedication, and competitive excellence has established one of the strongest dynasties in Arizona high school athletics. We are here to celebrate the Desert Mountain High School girls swim and dive team, the 2025 AIA Division II state champions. Wolves, please join me at the podium. This past season, the Wolves continued the remarkable run of dominance, capturing their fourth state championship in 5 years in Division II for the AIA. In a highly competitive field, Desert Mountain outscored Catalina Foothills with a powerful combination of depth, versatility, and standout performances across the board. What makes the achievement truly extraordinary is not just the championship itself, but the sustained excellence required to win it year after year. Season after season, these athletes demonstrate unwavering work ethic, team unity, and a commitment to improvement that sets them apart at every level of competition. Their success reflects countless early morning practices, hours in the pool and on the boards, the support and encouragement of their families, and the leadership of an outstanding coaching staff dedicated to developing athletes both in and out of the water. Wolves, on behalf of the district and our entire athletic community, congratulations on your state championship and on continuing the proud winning tradition of Desert Mountain swim and dive. Your legacy is extraordinary, and your achievements will inspire future Wolves for years to come. At this time, I would like to invite Desert Mountains Athletic Director, Sheriff Eisenmeyer, to say a few words.
Dr. Menzel and governing board members, thank you for giving us an opportunity to celebrate these young ladies. I was on the deck that night, and they were like listening, having fun. The season's over. And then one team after another was being announced, but they were not. So they're like, what does this mean? Where are we landing? And then they were announced the winners. So they won by 6 points, which means it's a huge team effort to get to that point. So congratulations, ladies.
Thank you, Athletic Director Eisenmeyer. Wolves, as a symbol of your accomplishment and the pride you bring to Desert Mountain High School, I am honored to present each of you with a challenge coin representing excellence, dedication, and championship standard you uphold year after year. Congratulations, Desert Mountain Wolves, for your state championship. Next, I have the privilege of recognizing an extraordinary group of student athletes whose spirit, talent, and commitment have led to history being made for Chaparral High School. Chaparral Varsity Cheer, will you please join me at the podium? The Chaparral Varsity Cheer team showcased their strength and competitive power, taking the state championship title for AIA Division I/II Game Day Cheer for the small division. This marks their third consecutive state title. This is the first time Chaparral Cheer has won 3 state titles in a row. Across all divisions and events, these athletes have demonstrated discipline, teamwork, and a commitment to excellence that stands out on every floor they take. As a symbol of this historic victory and pride you bring on to Chaparral, I am honored to present each of you with a challenge coin. This challenge coin represents excellence, perseverance, and the championship legacy you have now etched into Chaparral's story forever. Congratulations.
Thank you.
The spirited celebrations don't stop there. Chaparral's varsity pom team also dominated their season, taking home not 1 but 2 championship titles. Ladies, please join me at the podium. These ladies worked hard all season long, in long hours, dedication, and true teamwork. The work shines at the AIA State Championships where they were deemed. AIA Division II Palm State Champions and AIA Division II Game Day Dance Small Division State Championships. What an incredible season. Way to go, Chaparral Palm. At this time, I would like to invite Chaparral Principal Josh Pantier to say a few words about both of these amazing teams.
Thank you, Mr. Cervantes and Governing Board, for this opportunity to recognize our students. As he said, Cheer has won 3 state championships in a row, and Palm is 2 in a row. I don't know that everyone understands how much time these girls put into training, repetitive routines, choreography, memorization, and all the competitions and being in all the sporting events. Here tonight, we only have our captains. The teams are much bigger than this. But it really takes a lot of work and dedication to have the success that these girls have had. So we're very proud of them. Congratulations.
Hold on real quick, girls. As a symbol of your success and pride your team brings to Chaparral High School, I am honored to present each of you with a challenge coin representing excellence, dedication, and the championship standard you continue to uphold. Thanks, girls. Congratulations, Chaparral Palm State Championships. I am proud of all the SUSD athletes we're celebrating here today and throughout our first semester. I look forward to many more celebrations in the next year. Back to you, Dr. Menzel. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cervantes, and congratulations again to our Desert Mountain and Chaparral State Champion winners. We're very proud of all that you've accomplished. Now, to the outstanding Arcadia Marching Band and Color Guard who delivered an exceptional competitive season, also leading to a #1 placement at state. To celebrate this incredible achievement, please join me in welcoming our Fine Arts Coordinator, Michelle Irvin.
Thank you, Dr. Menzel, President Lewis, Vice President Sharkey, Governing Board's member, Mrs. Wagner. If I could have the members of the Arcadia Marching Band that could make it, their wonderful director, Nate Connell, and their incredible principal, Janelle Dansky. Come on up. Tonight, it's my great honor to present these exceptional young musicians. I got some of their awards there. Their new director, he's brand new to the district this year, and their principal. On November 15th, the Abota State Marching Champions, Abota is the Arizona Band and Orchestra Directors Association, the Spirit of Arcadia once again claimed the state championship title for Division 4. They also received a caption in music performance, visual performance, and general effect. One of the very cool things about this is their wonderful director here, Nate Connell. He wrote the music for the show, so he composed all the music. He wrote the drill for the show, right? So to me, and I know Dr. Yansky feels the same, Arcadia has gone through a lot over the last few years. They've had championships before, but 4 different directors, I believe, right? The senior class, seniors, yes? And we talk about resilience, and we talk about the grit it takes and the elevating excellence. I know Dr. Dansky and I were very concerned, but when we interviewed this young gentleman, we both looked at each other at the end and said, yes. The passion, the drive, the enthusiasm, even when I'm sitting back there talking to him, he's talking about jazz band, and they have 11 saxophones, and just, it's really wonderful to have someone of that level working with such a crazy, amazing kids. These kids work through it all, and they just excel. So it is my great honor to recognize you guys tonight. I know you couldn't all make it because it's the second day back from break. And Symphony, I'm sorry, I went completely off your script. But I would like to take a moment. Is Dr. Dansky? Oh my gosh, I'm gonna just grab a few of those. That weighs a ton. So what we're going to be giving you guys is challenge coins. It's a symbol of your achievement and the pride you bring to our district. We're honored to give you this challenge coin. This represents your excellence, your artistry, and your championship. And we are so proud of you and your accomplishments. And Nate, we love having you part of SUSD, and you're never leaving us. So can we hear it for the Arcadia High School Marching Band?
Congratulations. So proud of all that you accomplished. Thank you, Michelle. And now to a school making remarkable strides to improve student and community well-being. Navajo Elementary has officially been designated as a Blue Zone school. To share more about how this incredible achievement was made possible, I'd like to invite Dr. Christine Bono, Assistant Superintendent of Elementary Education, to the podium.
Thank you, Dr. Menzel, and good evening, President Lewis, Vice President Sharkey, Governing Board members, Dr. Menzel again, and Ms. Wagner. Navajo Elementary and Blue Zone representatives, would you like to come join me up here at the podium? Come on, guys, jump up here so we can celebrate you. I am so excited to be back at the podium, I think 4 straight meetings now, to recognize and celebrate another school that has earned Blue Zone certification. Tonight, we recognize Navajo Elementary School, led by Principal Matt Patzloff, as they've achieved this very desirable designation. At Navajo, the Blue Zones is not just a catchphrase. It's truly embedded in all they do. An example is the school's greenhouse and outdoor garden program. Students volunteer to plant and care for and harvest the fresh produce, gaining hands-on learning experience while building responsibility and teamwork. The garden's open to the entire school community of students and staff, and families are even invited to take fresh items home and incorporate healthy foods into their meals. Navajo is also committed to community-centered events, and through celebrations such as the Day of Awareness, Fall Festival, and their participation in Scottsdale's Prada del Sol, Navajo intentionally brings together students, staff, families, and community members. These events strengthen relationships, foster a sense of belonging, and reinforce the shared purpose that defines the Navajo community. Together, these practices reflect Navajo core values: placing students first, building positive relationships, and creating a supportive environment where everyone feels connected, safe, valued, and empowered. At this time, we'd like to invite Chris Bio from Blue Zones to talk about the incredible work going on at Navajo.
Thank you, Dr. Bono. Good evening, and thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here tonight to celebrate Navajo Elementary in becoming a Blue Zones approved school. A special thanks to Principal Matt and Assistant Principal Angie for saying yes and embarking on this well-being journey with us. And as Christine, you kind of hit on a lot of these, but you're doing so many amazing things to create a healthy, happy place to learn and grow. From their Wishes for Wheels program, which is giving second graders bikes and helmets, also to their Day of Awareness that celebrates their students and staff. We already mentioned the amazing greenhouse and garden. And then they seem like they're getting movement every day as well through their activity breaks, movement built into lessons, their PE programs where they're doing fun sports like yoga, pickleball, jump rope, even their events like the Jingle Jog and the Jump Rope for Heart that bring the whole school together. Everything you're doing, how you eat, how you move, and how you care for one another shows what a truly thriving school looks like. So once again, congratulations, and we're so proud of you guys. Thank you.
So again, I want to congratulate the whole Navajo team, and we would like to distribute. Angie, would you mind passing out these challenge coins to your team? Thank you so much. And we'll hand these out, and then Torrance, would you like the kids to go ahead and get a photo taken? So kids and Navajo staff, you'll follow Mr. Patzloff, and we'll take their pictures. We're going to give you one more big round of applause.
Congratulations, Navajo Elementary, and thank you to our Blue Zones partners. Finally, we are proud to honor an extraordinary young leader whose compassion, determination, and vision for positive change have already made a powerful mark on her school and her community. To share more about this incredible student and her most recent achievement, I'd like to invite Assistant Superintendent Dr. Melissa Sackos forward.
Thank you, Dr. Menzel, and good evening. President Lewis, Vice President Sharkey, Governing Board members, Dr. Menzel, and Ms. Wagner. Yes, this is our last celebration, but certainly most important, right? Yeah. I'd like to introduce Karina Kopikar as we honor her. Now you can see her amazing picture right up there. Karina is a remarkable student from Chaparral High School who has been awarded the Jenkins Youth Leadership Award, a prestigious recognition given to leaders who demonstrate extraordinary service, character, and commitment to bettering the communities. Karina has distinguished herself as a leader in youth empowerment, education, and mental health advocacy. She has developed programs that connect students with members, promote inclusivity, and create opportunities for personal growth. Her efforts have strengthened the culture of support at Chaparral and inspired countless students to step confidently into their own potential. Her leadership is not only impactful, it perfectly reflects the values that we uphold here at SUSD: integrity, empathy, unity, inclusion, trust, and excellence. Karina lifts others through her actions and demonstrates what it means to serve with purpose and heart. While Karina has already been formally honored with the Jenkins Youth Leadership Award, tonight we celebrate her accomplishments as a district, recognizing the positive and lasting influence she brings to her school and to her community. At this time, Principal Prentier, I believe you want to say a few words, and Karina did give you permission to do so.
Karina is just an amazing all-around student. If you Google her name, you can find numerous articles online about her and about all the great things she's done in high school, whether it's leading clubs or starting a nonprofit or winning other leadership awards around the Valley. She's just an amazing kid. And not only has she done a lot for Chaparral and the community around her, she's a good person. She's respectful. She's respected by her peers and her teachers. And we just can't wait to see what she's going to do after high school. So congratulations, Karina.
And Karina was offered a challenge coin to commemorate your achievements. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sakos, and congratulations, Karina. That was a moment of SUSD pride when we saw the award presented at the Scottsdale Leadership event. Finally, just for those who may not know, January is Governing Board Appreciation Month. And this evening, we are honored to recognize the Scottsdale Unified School District Governing Board for its leadership, service, and commitment to excellence in education. The work of the SUSD Governing Board reflects our district's core values, placing students at the center of every decision, leading with integrity, and fostering collaboration and trust across our schools and community. Serving on a governing board is often a thankless job. It certainly doesn't pay any money. But the rewards are often seen in the celebrations as we've had this evening and in the students as they walk across the stage prepared for the next journey in their lives. Through your governance, you help set a clear vision for the district, ensure responsible stewardship of resources, and support high-quality learning environments where all students are encouraged to grow, achieve, and excel. So on behalf of our students, families, educators, and staff, I want to express our sincere appreciation for your leadership and partnership. Your dedication helps ensure Scottsdale Unified School District continues to uphold a standard of excellence in teaching, learning, and opportunity for every student. I'd like to invite the people who are in the audience to join me in a round of applause for our governing board. And that concludes our celebrations.
I'm a little verklempt, okay. So we'll move to our governing board reports. Let's start down here, Dr. Potensky.
Does the fact that I'm seated here mean that forever I'll always be
Yep,
the one that goes first?
every time.
So I just want to say thank you to the principals of the schools in the Chaparral Learning Community. I've had an opportunity to visit each. They provided tours, talked about the issues that they're experiencing in their schools, sometimes joining the site council. Sorry, why was I blanking on that? Sometimes joining the site council, sometimes just the schools themselves. So I want to say thank you. And then I also want to say thank you to the Chaparral DECA Club and to the district for helping to facilitate an opportunity for me to meet with them and talk about how our future business leaders may want to take on the opportunity of practicing the art of marketing and playing a role in our enrollment strategy at SUSD. So that is my report.
Nice, all right, Amy? No report, Mike?
No update.
And none for me here, except to say, just I wish everybody a happy new year and a wonderful, give it your all, because January and February are such intense learning months. We really throw our all into these next 2 months, and as we concentrate before testing, this is such prime time for learning. So welcome back, everybody. Our superintendent's report now.
Well, thank you, Dr. Lewis. And because Board Member Werner is in the parking lot and walking in, I am going to talk until she gets here, and then we will be set. But two things that I really wanted to highlight. First, on December 13th, we held a ribbon cutting for the 68th and Oak Street Athletic Facility. Thank you, Board Member Carney, for being present for that as well. It was really a joyful occasion. If you had the opportunity to talk to the neighbors who were a part of the ongoing conversation over many years related to the future of that site, you would see a lot of joy and expressions of gratitude for the work of Mr. Rayler and the construction and architectural team that put together a really nice project. So kudos and shout out to Wilmeg and to all of the others who have been a part of making that project special, and to Mr. Rayler for carefully listening to the voices of the community as part of that project. And then the other thing that I want to mention is that on the 15th of this month, we will be part of the Martin Luther King Jr. celebration here in Scottsdale that's sponsored by the community celebrating diversity. On that day, we host a Voices event at Saguaro High School, invite all of our governing board members to attend. And then that evening, there is a community-wide event. And so we look forward to celebrating the life and legacy of Dr. King on January 15th, and we'll be able to report more about that after the event occurs. With that, it concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Menzel. All right, that brings us to item number 3 that we reordered, and welcome, and for our agenda roll call, Karen Warner has joined us. As we move into item 3, we're looking for election of governing board officers, so I ask for nominations for president. Dr. Patensky?
Well, this is awkward since I haven't asked whether you'd be willing to do it, but I actually would like to nominate you to stay on for another term as president. I think that there's a learning curve to being president, and we want to benefit from that learning curve. As well, we're engaged in a lot of multi-year, very challenging agenda topics, and I think in that context, having consistency of leadership has a lot of benefits to it. And then last but not least, I think you've done an excellent job with a board that has sometimes very different priorities, very different ways of communicating, very different ways of approaching issues, and I think you've done a great job creating space for people to help shape the agenda, communicate fully their thoughts, and then ultimately get to a board consensus. So I nominate you to continue for a second term as president. You being Dr. Lewis.
Thank you.
So when we've had multiple nominations in the past, we do the nominations and then the nominees would say why they should be elected. So I'd like to do that today.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So I would like to nominate Amy Carney as president. She's the most seasoned on the board. She knows policy better than anyone on this dais. She has put forth policy that has made effective changes here in the district. She collaborates and wins hearts and minds when it comes to staff, parents, and the community. And I think that she would be an excellent leader to lead us into this 4th year as governing board members.
Thank you. Any other nominations? All right, we need a second for the nominations, and then we.
You're going to speak first. Why? You have to say why you should be.
Ms. McClellan?
Madam President, I believe Ms. Carney's asked that each of you decide if you're going to accept the nomination and provide information. So that could be first, but if there is a nomination, it doesn't need a second. You just need to start with the vote, and typically we would vote in the order of named individuals. So we would vote on Dr. Lewis, and if Dr. Lewis doesn't pass, then we would vote on Ms. Carney.
Thank you for your guidance. Thank you, Dr. Patensky, for the compliment. It has certainly been, I think, a pretty healthy discussion amongst us over the years as we've had different viewpoints and similar viewpoints. I think we've begun to learn a lot about one another, and I think we have tremendous potential for our continued synergy, even with those varying perspectives. And I so feel that we grow when we get different perspectives and consider each other's points of view seriously. So I appreciate the compliment and hope to continue that momentum and trajectory. So it is with a great honor that I accept the nomination.
And now it would be time to hear from Ms. Carney.
Thank you for the nomination for president of the board for 2026. Over the past 3 years, I have consistently brought forward agenda items with practical solutions aimed at moving our district forward. I've attended every regularly scheduled board meeting, and I made it a priority. I have visited or attended events on every school campus in our district outside of schools that my own children attend. I remain deeply invested in this community, and as a parent with 2 children still in our schools, and as a board member committed to respectful collaboration and steady leadership, I would appreciate your support and your vote for board president for 2026.
Thank you. With that, we call for a vote on the first nominee. So all those in favor of Donna Lewis for president, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
No.
No? All right. The motion passes 3-2, and therefore we're done. Is that right? Thank you, Ms. Carney. I really appreciate running with you. All right. Next, we have a nomination for vice president. I'm asking for nominations. Dr. Patensky?
So with the same logic, not surprising, and also awkwardly, since I haven't had a chance to ask if you would accept, I would nominate that Mr. Sharkey continue as vice president. Again, I think there's a learning curve. I think you've worked very well together as a team. When Mr. Sharkey has stepped in, I think he's done an able job leading the meetings. And again, we've got a lot of complicated multi-year type agenda topics, and I think consistency and stability of leadership has a lot to offer itself, especially when we're fortunate to have Mr. Sharkey having done such a great job as vice president. So for those reasons, I nominate him.
Thank you. Do we have another nomination? All right, I need a second. I don't need a second. I can just call for the election unless I should pause. All
We
right.
should ask Mr. Sharkey if he accepts the
Do
I
you
accept the nomination.
All right, do you accept the nomination? Thank you. All right, all those in favor of Mr. Sharkey for vice president, say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No?
No.
All right, passes 3-2. Thank you, everybody. Okay, that brings us to public comment. In compliance with open meeting law, the governing board may not discuss or take action tonight on any matters raised during public comments that are not on the agenda. However, the governing board members may respond to direct criticism, ask staff to review a matter, or that a matter be placed on a future agenda. Public comments will be conducted in accordance with board policy BEDH. As a reminder, each speaker will have 2 minutes. The screen will indicate the time. Please be prepared to close your comments and relinquish the floor at conclusion of your time. The board asks that each speaker please introduce yourself by stating your name and whether you live within our school district for clarity on the record. We thank you for your time and attendance here this evening and your cooperation in following the meeting decorum and protocols. I will read the name of the speaker. When you hear your name, could you please come to the podium? I will read the name of the next speaker to be ready on deck. Once you start speaking, your time will start. Our first speaker is Debbie Schumacher. I'm sorry, I didn't see the M. Schumacher, thank you. On PEMA, and then that'll be followed by Emmy Cardella on school closure vote. Thank you, Ms. Schumacher.
My name is Debbie Schumacher, and I am a homeowner in SUSD. I am concerned that the board appears to be offering every possible option and opportunity to the Phase 2 schools that was requested by PEMA. For example, families at Cheyenne were informed that if Cheyenne and Copper Ridge could not reach an agreement, both schools would be removed from consideration and alternative options would be pursued. Given that these 2 schools have more affluent populations, it raises questions about whether their perspectives are being given greater weight. I urge you to reconsider the decision to close PEMA and provide PEMA with the equivalent opportunities for growth. I ask the board to consider how an Arizona district with a single school in Mobile, Arizona can maintain their staff and facilities for 8 students, none of which live in the city of Mobile. They are bused in from Maricopa, whereas SUSD says they cannot support 296 students in a new state-of-the-art building in a populated city. I'm here tonight to also request that the board discipline Scott Menzel for publicly defaming an SUSD employee during his meeting with the families at Cheyenne on December 16th. The employee has the right to pursue litigation for the liable and slanderous statement made by Scott, and with the number of witnesses and recordings of the meeting, the employee would most likely be victorious. And Scott, I want to know how you look at yourself in the mirror every morning, knowing you accepted a performance-based bonus that you did not earn. SUSD is in worse condition than when you arrived 5 years ago.
Thank you. And we have Emmy Cardella, followed by Jeff Rattay on personal matter.
Good evening, Governing Board, Dr. Menzel and Gladys. My name is Emmy Cardella, and I am a parent in the district here. At the last meeting, the board made the painful but necessary decision to start consolidating schools. I was deeply disappointed that this vote was not unanimous. This is an extraordinarily difficult time for families and staff affected by these decisions, and it would have been far better for our board to act as a unified team. Board members Carney and Warner, you voted against the closure, but you offered no alternatives to address the budget crisis that we face. You advocated for taking no action at all, a position that would have resulted in a significant budget shortfall, and inevitably, next year there would be reductions in take-home pay by our teachers and staff. Your claims that this process came out of nowhere and that more should have been done suggest that either you have not been paying attention during the past 3 years that you've been sitting on this board, or that you have been deliberately dishonest. You sat through more than a dozen budget updates, listened to multiple presentations on enrollment and demographic trends. None of this is new information. You continue to insist that more options are needed. This room is filled with people holding advanced degrees in accounting, finance, law, education, and other fields. They worked for months and developed a menu of options to address the budget shortfall, but you refused to consider any of them. You didn't engage in any sort of productive conversation. Instead, you simply pointed fingers and complained about the options. If you think they exist, what exactly are you doing to find them? Your vote last month amounted to pretending that some easy solution was waiting to be discovered. It is not. There are still extremely difficult work decisions ahead. I'm asking that you stop playing games and start doing the serious work that this position demands. Your fellow board members researched the options, educated themselves, and made a decision. You refused to do so. If you truly believe better options are out there, then go find them.
Thank you. I would like to invite Jeff Rattay up, followed by TJ Buckley on insurance RFP.
Once again, I have here the form which banned me from Arcadia High School for refusing to call girls by boys' names without the parents' permission. In other words, to change the rostered names that I was given by the office that morning. It's signed by the principal. In addition, the transgender students were solicited for these letters, claiming they were so traumatized by my actions. I immediately went to the district office and spoke with Amy Goff, who told me to stay away from the school, which confirmed to me that this was initiated by Scott Menzel. I found these letters, which were secretly placed in my personnel file after I was fired, which explains why I was banned from Arcadia for 3 years. A federal judge ruled that school districts cannot force teachers to call girls by boys' names. If you do, you are violating that teacher's First Amendment right to freedom of speech, and there cannot be free speech retaliation. Another federal judge 3 weeks ago ruled that parental exclusion policies are unconstitutional. President Trump has threatened to freeze all federal funding to the Scottsdale Unified School District. Menzel continues his DEI policies. The state superintendent reported to the feds that this Democratic-led school board violated a signed agreement not to practice diversity, equity, and inclusion. What's missing in the discussion, of course, is the role Gus Rosenfeld law firm has played in all this. My situation should have been settled 2 years ago. Instead, Gus Rosenfeld has advised the board to simply ignore me. Mr. Sharkey, did Jennifer McClellan tell you that the average settlement for a DEI lawsuit in which teachers are forced to call girls by boys' names is $500,000? And those suits involve teachers who resigned rather than call girls by boys' names. Menzel fired me. My initial impression was that Gus Rosenfeld wanted to fleece the taxpayers out of large sums of fees when a lawsuit gets filed. But here's my theory. I think Gus Rosenfeld wants to make a name for themselves on the national stage, defending DEI against 2 federal judges and the President of the United States. Mr. Sharkey, you invited me to an executive board meeting to resolve the issues, then voted to send me home before I even had a chance to speak. Of course, neither you nor Gus Rosenfeld have anything to say when your fellow Democrat board member hosts drug and alcohol parties for teenagers.
Thank you. TJ Buckley is next, followed by Mike Bingert on Dr. Menzel.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, superintendent. I am TJ Buckley, president of Scottsdale Education Association. Our association is appreciative of the health insurance RFP process and supports the recommendation brought before you tonight. We have long had an interest in addressing the rising costs of insurance, and while there are still steps to be completed in the process, we are encouraged by our progress. Blue Cross and Blue Shield will create cost savings as compared to competitors. While increases may continue, we are hopeful that they will be at a lower rate than our current plan. Representatives from all employee groups participated in the process. This was a great team effort, and I especially wanted to thank you all for calling this process to be initiated as you listened and acted on the needs of your employees. With the theme of listening, teamwork, and collective action, I would like to address some of the changes that will be discussed at future meetings. I encourage the board to continue to listen to all employee groups and their needs. In addition to repurposing 2 schools, more cost-saving options have been shared with you, and more will come in the coming weeks. IBN is in the process of reviewing these options. I participate in the IBN process and understand the gravity of the situation. I support the decisions of the group. However, It is important to note that while we as leaders and representatives review these options, specific employees that are affected by these changes have not been involved. While many of these options have been public for months, I fear many employees and community members not involved within the process do not see how real these options are and how we will be affected by each individual option. I believe there will be a great amount of anxiety and reaction to them. In the coming weeks and months, I encourage you to give the affected individuals space to be heard. I also encourage definitive decisions and directives on each of these options to provide everyone with clarity on the changes. As you did with health insurance and school repurposing, I encourage you to listen to your employees and community to form your opinions and actions around what's best for the people of this district, not just the numbers on a spreadsheet. Thank you.
Thank you, TJ. Mike and Ben Gert, followed by Jason Klonowski.
SUSD recently posted a 2025 wrap on Instagram celebrating the graduation of roughly 1,800 students, yet more than 600 of those graduates are not performing at grade level in ELA, 800 are not proficient in math, and 1,400 are not proficient in science. Let's look at some other SUSD highlights from 2025. 4 employees were removed for inappropriate behavior involving children. A substitute teacher who reported mirrors were placed in a classroom was left to defend herself without district support. $674,000 was spent on an AP honors social science curriculum that promotes leftist ideological content, including claims that gender is a choice, policing is inherently bad, and more. Taxpayer dollars were used to train teachers to affirm students' gender confusion. $26,000 was spent to send 75 students to gender identity camp. Elementary students were exposed to LGBTQ plus sexual orientation lessons without parental opt-in. A high school math teacher reports that students entering her class are performing at a 5th grade level. SUSD has received more than $2 million for students with disabilities, yet only 7 students were served. Sharkey publicly stated that community members' opinions do not matter to him. Patinsky held an alcohol-fueled rage for underage private school students. After campaigning on a promise not to close schools, Sharkey, Lewis, and Patinsky voted to close Pima and Echo Canyon. Enrollment in SUSD has been declining for years with no meaningful action taken to reverse the trend. You blame it all on lower birth rates, ESA, and demographic changes. You never take responsibility for anything. For the past 3 years, exit surveys have consistently identified the same top concerns: discipline and policy enforcement, bullying and safety, special ed services, dissatisfaction with leadership, lack of academic rigor. Given these realities, one would expect a greater focus on safety and academics and less emphasis on DEI, SEL, and gender ideology. Parents, wake up, speak up, and take action. Menzel and his loyal board majority are destroying SUSD.
Thank you, Mike. Jason Klonowski.
Can you hear me? Hi, Jason Klonowski. I sit in the audit committee with Mr. Sharkey, formerly with Mrs. Warner, and with former board member Patty Beckman. We've donated a lot of time and money over the years to SUSD over the last 20, and serve on a civic organization that's given millions to the district, but I'm not here representing them. I will just say the audit committee was surprised to see the agenda item for the insurance change today. And there was some dialogue back and forth that we were just kind of like, wow, we're supposed to have a meeting out of order on the 16th of January to digest a pharmacy audit, and we just were surprised by it. The gentleman with the union obviously is in favor of it. We just seem to be a little bit confused. It's a $20 million decision, seems to be being made without the input of the committee, which has some extremely qualified members, including someone that we just brought on because we thought we had the year, and he's employed by one of the largest healthcare providers in the state, without saying names. I've negotiated many of these contracts, and the devil is always in the details. Some of the metrics in the we don't know what metrics were used, and when we saw the slides that are going to be presented this evening, there was kind of a lack of information that we were kind of like, okay, how do we even know how this decision was made or this recommendation was made? Were there any interviews done by the respondents? Why is Mesa School District opting into Kairos and we're opting out? These are just questions. I don't know the answers. They may have great answers, but we were curious as to why. It brings me no joy to say these things because it could be perceived that I am standing in contrary to people that I know and trust in this room and have known for many years. And healthcare is an incredibly important decision for every person in this district. As a member of the audit committee, we would just ask that you give us time to provide some input, even if it means delaying implementation. Thanks.
Thank you. Board, that concludes our speakers. Are there any responses, comments, questions? Thank you. That brings us to information discussion items. Ms. McLennan is first with our annual open meeting law training.
Madam President, members of the Governing Board, Dr. Menzel and Ms. Wagner, thank you very much. I'm here today to present to you the annual open meeting law training that the Governing Board has traditionally persisted with, and so we will go through this very important topic. The basics, under the open meeting law is a sunshine law. It's similar to the Arizona Public Records Law. The idea of it is that there should be transparency in government. So the basics of it are that it applies to all public bodies, which includes this governing board. It applies to board-appointed committees. It requires public officers to take legal action in duly noticed meetings. It has requirements regarding the posting of agendas and regarding the keeping of minutes. And I want to thank publicly Ms. Wagner for doing such a good job with both. Legal action has a specific definition. It means a collective decision, commitment, or promise made by the public body pursuant to its constitutions or its, in your case, the specified statutes that enable you to act. Meeting is the gathering, whether in person or through electronic means, of a quorum of the public body. Because you are a 5-member board, that means if 3 of you gather and speak, that is a meeting. And so in order for 3 of you or more to gather or speak, you must do that with the appropriate guardrails, including the posting, the minutes, and 24 hours notice to the public. The definition of legal action previously included that it had to involve a majority of the members of the public body, but the Attorney General's office deleted this pursuant to recommendation to the legislature in the last 10 years. And in part, they did that to prevent inadvertent open meeting law violations and also to acknowledge that proposing legal action, so one board member proposing legal action to a majority of the board can also violate the open meeting law. So again, it includes both discussions and deliberations that occur outside of an open and duly noticed meeting, as well as proposing or taking any legal action. The open meeting law permits a call to the public. This board has traditionally permitted call to the public, and you all have done a good job of only responding to criticism, asking that the superintendent review a matter, or asking that a matter be placed on a future agenda. You cannot open up into a discussion when you respond to the call to the public, and because you have created this limited public forum under the First Amendment, you can only have reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions with respect to permitting that call to the public. A member of the public body cannot direct any staff member to communicate in violation of the open meeting law. You, members of the public, including myself, including Dr. Menzel, Ms. Wagner, cannot facilitate any violations of the open meeting law. And so you have to prevent the spokes of the wheel, so transmission of your deliberations through a third party is also forbidden. The public open meeting law does allow for the board to present current events. Your governing board traditionally has done that as well. And when you do that, I would encourage you to stick to most recent things that you've attended, highlighting certain events that have occurred with respect to the district, but not get into, if you can, refrain from getting into national public issues or using it as a forum to voice your opinion on upcoming votes. It is meant just to reiterate what you have done as a board member and celebrate both your, what you have been doing as well as your district. The open meeting law does have a definition of executive session. The board is permitted to meet in private, away from the members of the public for certain specific reasons. It is up to the governing board which individuals are necessary to be present in those executive sessions. And these are the listed reasons for why you can conduct executive sessions under the open meeting law. These aren't all the reasons, but these are some of them. The open meeting law requires that executive session minutes recite who's in attendance, as well as any direction given to, say, the attorney or a real estate representative. The notice for the executive session, I do work on those with Ms. Wagner, as have your prior general counsels, to make sure that it doesn't defeat the purpose of revealing too much, but that it also says enough so that members of the public are aware of what you're going to be talking about behind those closed doors. And the open meeting law does permit the release of executive session information to overseeing agencies such as the Attorney General's office. There is a $500 penalty for each violation of the open meeting law. The law specifies that that penalty must be paid from personal accounts and not from public monies. And so that's a very rare instance, but I have in my career had at least one board member censured in this manner. And with that, I'll take any questions that you might have. Thank you very much for all your efforts. I honor all of you this governing board recognition month and appreciate being able to work with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. All right, that brings us to the status update regarding Phase 1 and Phase 2 repurposing of schools. Dr. Menzel.
Well, thank you, President Lewis, Vice President Sharkey, and members of the governing board. Subsequent to the meeting on December 9th, there have been a lot of things that have taken place, and we think it's important to not only share with all of you what we do in writing, but also publicly at the regular governing board meetings so that the community can hear a status update as well. In the agenda, you'll see the first 3 bullet points really talk about the communication that we had following the board decision, update regarding services and outreach to families, and information regarding enrollment decisions. I've asked on my leadership team, Leah Mitchell, to serve as the point person or quarterback for our work in terms of providing concierge service. And so I'm going to ask her to provide the update with respect to where we are in support of families at Pima and Echo Canyon.
Sure. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Good evening, governing board members. Also, thank you for the feedback from the written communication before break. I really appreciate just knowing I want to make sure I'm providing you guys the information that you most desire, so any additional feedback is always welcome. Just wanted to share that we've been very pleased that between Echo and Pima, 170 students and their families will receive welcome calls and outreach from their new school leaders and staff members this week and next. So we have 170 families who've already made those decisions and are well on their way, and that's just as of December 19th. It's been amazing to see the collaboration among our school leaders and staff who are working tirelessly to support each other, but most importantly to support our students and our families in finding the school that's the just best fit for their child. We also want to share that our support services team, led by Shannon Cron, they've been on site at both Echo and Pima and have had the opportunity to connect with students and families who need extra layers of support through this transition. They've provided individual supports to students and families, worked with them to share resources, guidance, and help them navigate forward. And we've just asked that the staff at the school continue to check in with all students and all families, and should any additional layers of support be needed, we all stand ready to provide those. As we shared in our last meeting, we do have that cadence of accountability for district teams and school leaders, and we've already had a couple of those check-ins this week. The others happening tomorrow and Thursday with the district team. In yesterday's check-in, we learned that school leaders have hit the ground running and are already making the second contact to families. The vast majority of families receive contact before break, and their school principals and concierge teams from their current school are already receiving that follow-up contact. How are you doing? How can we help? What can we be supporting you with? I would say likely by the time of the end of this meeting, nearly half of students at one of our schools have been contacted, and getting very close in the other as they are ramping up with their concierge services also. Over the break, we have learned of a few families who are currently attending SUSD and will not be returning to our schools next year, as they'll be heading to their home districts in Maricopa, Buckeye, and one family in Creighton, in part due to the school closures. We'll continue to monitor this and do additional layers of outreach to see how we may further accommodate or support keeping them here in SUSD. In terms of concierge services for our amazing staff, they're really on our minds, and I know they've come back ready to work, to clear up the uncertainty that's at their doorstep. And so they have received some communication that week before break from HR, and we'll have individual points of contact that will be providing one-on-one support throughout this process. We know our staff are really eager to move beyond uncertainty, and like Mr. Buckley mentioned earlier, our IBN teams are working diligently, tirelessly, a little over break, and the rest of this week to really start hammering out what those practices and procedures will be. It is the aim to be able to notify staff either by the end of this week or early next about those procedures, with any of our displaced teachers from ECHO and PIMA being prioritized throughout the process. Lastly, as it relates to the overall sentiment that has been shared by staff members who are working directly with families, there continues to be sadness and frustration, and worry about what is next. And many of our PIMA families are uncertain and awaiting boundary decisions before making their next decisions. But I also want to say we've heard some amazing stories about resiliency, friendships that were forged over break, kids that are excited and already asking for t-shirts from their new schools. And we're just really committed to working with each student and each family, no matter where they're at in the transition. I would say right before break, and throughout this whole process, there are things we're going to get right, and there are things that we are not going to get right. Most importantly, we want to make up when we don't and make corrections and make sure each and every one of our students starts next year feeling like they have a sense of belonging, they've been welcomed, and they're in a school that they will come to love. Last but not least, I counted numbers just right before we came, and so I want to share that of our 266 ECHO students that we're working on right now, we have 115 that have already made decisions for next year and are fully enrolled or in the queue, meaning tonight when Synergy processes, they'll be fully enrolled tomorrow morning. That's 43% of Echo Canyon. We have 101 PIMA families that have made decisions. That's 41%. And so while there are many PIMA families who've expressed a desire for boundary decisions to drive their decision, we also have a large number that have already made decisions. And like I mentioned, principals at receiving schools are beginning, probably already today, made some of those welcome calls. And some of our students did choose to start in January at their new schools. And so we know that different district teams and schools have been working through childcare and really working with different agencies and entities to try to facilitate those processes too.
Thank you, Leah. Appreciate that update. And after we go through the last two bullets, we'll give the board an opportunity to ask any questions that you might have. So with respect to phase two, one of the things that we started before the break was holding meetings with families and staff, first at Copper Ridge, then at Cheyenne. We started those conversations before the break, in part because of the questions that had been raised and also the conversation around the potential of one campus moving to another. There was an extended period of dialogue, about 85 people at the Copper Ridge meeting and 75 at the Cheyenne meeting. And we didn't make specific commitments except for that we were going to survey families to identify their thoughts with respect to that potential of moving and gather information from them. We also scheduled meetings with the other Phase 2 schools throughout the month of January, and a couple, I think, moved into early February. Now, there are a couple of differences, and so I've talked about the importance of creating a committee. I actually said not necessarily just one committee. I think there's at least two in order to be able to get community feedback. As you know, we've heard a lot and received a lot of feedback from the PIMA and Echo Canyon conversations, and we're working to incorporate improvements in our process as a result. When you look at the schools that are on that Phase 2 list, Yavapai and Tonalea are different than the ones up in the Desert Mountain Learning Community plus Copper Ridge. And so I would envision at least two committees, one that talks about the Desert Mountain Copper Ridge conversation, and there the goal remains the same as we outlined on November 18th, and that is we need to reduce our footprint by at least 2 more buildings, so a total of 4 by the 28-29 school year, so that we right-size our utilization of our facilities or maximize that in order to put the resources not in under-enrolled schools, but to put it into full and thriving schools and to invest in programs that are attracting and retaining students. So that's still part of the goal. So the committee in the Desert Mountain Copper Ridge area, that's part of the conversation on what are the options related to how do we reduce our footprint by 2. And there are many different potential options. It's one of the reasons why we didn't think that moving quickly was the right thing, that we needed to take more time to vet all of the different scenarios. With respect to Tonalea and Yavapai, we've made the decision with respect to one elementary school in the Coronado learning community. We believe that with targeted effort, we can support Yavapai and Tonalea to put them on a path of growth along with Hohokam so that we can maintain a solid stream of students into Coronado High School. So the work in the South Scottsdale community will be really focused on those growth strategies with respect to Hohokam, Yavapai, Tonalea into Coronado. Desert Mountain, it's a different conversation about what are the options to reduce our footprint by 2 in order to be able to ensure that we're leveraging resources in the proper manner. It's going to be an extensive number of conversations between now and the time that we expect the board will ultimately be asked to make a decision, which is in October. So this is just the beginning of the journey. No final decisions have been made, but we are open to suggestions from the community. And then finally, we've been asked by people, not only on the governing board, but by others with respect to the repurposing of Pima and Echo Canyon. And we had shared previously with the board 2 ideas that have been reviewed and will be brought forward as potential options for the governing board related to how we believe those 2 facilities can be used while reducing the impact on maintenance and operating funds. At the same time, we've had outside parties interested in leasing space from the district that have connected with Mr. Rayler, who have toured the facilities, and I'm going to be inviting them to submit a proposal for what they would like to be considered for. We have the facility use rubric that was adopted by a prior board that will be used to present an analysis of the options available, and our ultimate goal is to bring the recommendations for repurposing of Pima and Echo to the board by the March 10th meeting. We know that these decisions are important to make. We also want to allow enough time to make sure that we fully vetted the different options available to the governing board. And so we are committed to continuing to update our website with respect to where we are on phase 1 and phase 2, to engaging in robust dialogue, and to maintain focus on that destination picture of moving towards better utilization of our district assets and facilities so that we can invest in our people in a way that's important to attract and retain talent. And with that, we'll open it up to any questions.
Comments, board members? Mr. Sharkey?
Ms. Mitchell, on the comment of Pima families, or maybe it's Pima and Echo, but Pima families waiting for the boundary decisions, given open enrollment, can you tell me what the logic is and what the need is for that? Because I'm not
Transportation.
clear. Oh.
So that's what I ascertain from the families who are waiting for boundary decisions. They're waiting because they likely are either dependent or would prefer transportation. I know when my kid was in school age, she went to whatever school the bus took them to. And so I think that's really what's playing into that desire to wait for the boundaries, is to see, will our new boundary also then, will we get transportation to the place I want? And so that seems to be really related to transportation.
Thank you.
Dr. Potensky?
Staying with you, Ms. Mitchell, can you speak a little bit to the concern that I know we heard during the process around not just finding a school for a K-5 or K-6 student, but also early childhood, early learning, and wanting to, which often can be tighter spots to get access to. Remind me, is there a concierge service for families whose older kids are affected to help support their younger kid also getting an option so that you don't have to split across multiple sites?
Yes, absolutely. And I would, if I misspeak, I know Dr. Bono, who also oversees early learning, will support with that. But our early learning concierge team is working in concert with the district and the school. And so whenever those conversations are happening, if you have an older kid and a little, or you have a little and an older, our teams are working to see, are those programs offered there? What other programs could be offered? And so those conversations are happening regularly with Mr. Noonan and his team, schools and families. And we know that childcare is so critically important. Having your kids in the same area is also important. And so we are working with local businesses to try and figure out how can we support families in helping to expedite that. But early learning is playing a big role, and that team, the early learning team, has worked with all of our students currently in early learning and are making those sibling connections.
Thank you, and I just wanted to thank you for your report and the reports that the board is getting, and just endorse the idea of keeping this as a regular agenda item and ensuring that we are consistently getting updated on both the level of care that families are getting, but also, that critical retention statistic, which may still be a little early to calculate. But once we feel like we have enough confirmations, starting to be very transparent about the retention metric, because it's such an important consideration for the district.
Absolutely. And if there's any additional information you would like in those weekly Friday updates, please don't hesitate to reach out or let me know if you want to have any conversations about them. I want to be really available to have any conversations about this process. It's so important.
Ms. Carney?
Thank you, President Lewis. Could you go back to the surveys and the plan for that? Who will be getting surveyed? When will those be going out? What's the platform that you're using to send those out?
So the survey hasn't been developed yet. There were conversations at Copper Ridge that talked about, rank order surveying in terms of preferred options, those kinds of things. At Cheyenne, it was more direct. Do you want to relocate or not relocate? That was the comments from the families. The instrument that we'd use our Engage platform that we do our other surveying on, so that we would have a robust data set we can break down demographically to be able to see where we are. I think the real question becomes, what's the appropriate time to do surveys, and should we do something in stages, or should we wait until we have all of the conversations with the other families as well? But in the fall, when we met with Copper Ridge and Cheyenne families, I thought that it made sense to move quickly to get feedback. And so that was what I discussed with them at the time. And we have not finalized what the survey questions would be yet.
Okay, and so those will be unique to, each survey will be unique to that building?
Yeah, they have to be customized. It's, at least as I envision at this point, it's not a standard survey, because there are different considerations based on the school facility itself and what the potential options might be.
Okay, and then lastly, I would just ask if the board could receive the Let's Talk responses that have come in for any of the schools on Phase 1 or Phase 2 since December 9th. I did have a parent a couple days ago ask me if I had read her Let's Talk, and I told her the board does not receive those. So if we could receive those from any community members from any of those schools on Phase 1, Phase 2.
If I may, just staying on the topic of the surveys, I'm a little concerned. I certainly endorse surveys, to be clear, but I think Ms. Schumacher made a comment in the Omen comment period that I think resonates here, which is one of the pieces of feedback we heard in Phase 1 is that families at some schools felt like other schools' decisions were therefore pre-configuring what would happen to their school. And in that way, they were getting preferential treatment. And I worry that while it's a natural thing to offer, especially if you're up in front of these families, I worry that offering 2 of the 6 schools an opportunity first to give feedback on what they're comfortable with will repeat that same mistake. I'll describe it as a mistake in my view of Phase 1, where then the rest of the schools say, wait a minute, if we're all in this together and it's about a district level concern, why are we picking certain schools to go first and allowing them to then kind of have an order of operations, or a path dependency that works negatively? I mean, stepping back, I think my math is right. It may not be exactly right. But in the 6 schools in Phase 2, we have 3,300 students in schools that support 6,300. So we're only at 53% utilization. Again, I hate to talk about numbers when these are families, but that is, the decision to do that is a financial decision to direct resources that could be going in other places to support our excellence in our district. And so this is a community level issue. It's not just 2 schools, it's all of the schools. And so especially if we're going to be considering the formation of committees, whether it's a superintendent committee or a board committee, to front run that by doing surveys and to also front run some schools by doing surveys at other schools gives me serious pause. Again, I believe in surveys. I just believe in doing them with everybody on all schools that are involved and as part of an orderly process.
Ms. Carney?
I agree with Board Member Potensky as well on that. I second that.
Yeah, I appreciate the macro perspective as we look at the ripple effects across all of the services we can provide to all of our kids. Thank you. On the repurposing component, if you would be so kind as to send us the facility use rubric, I would like to look at it as we consider those options later. Other comments?
We will do that.
Thank you. All right, great discussion. Thank you for the update. We are at first read now on item 8C for the middle school planning guide for 26-27. Dr. Jadowski. I'm Dr. J, but I want to get it right.
Jagodzinski.
Jagodzinski. Jagodzinski.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, President Lewis, Vice President Sharkey, Governing Board members Dr. Menzel, Ms. Wagner, and guests. I am happy to be here this evening to present to you the first read of the proposed middle school planning guide for the 26-27 school year. The work of the Middle School Planning Guide Committee has been designated to align with the support with our strategic plan and key performance indicators. The planning guide we are bringing forward to you today is the outcome of the work of the Middle School Planning Guide Committee. This committee met weekly last semester during the months of November and December. This year, we began with a comprehensive review of the current middle school planning guide. We conducted an audit to review course participation over the past few years, particularly in our elective courses. The committee reviewed stakeholder input from teachers, administrators, and district leaders, and reviewed 12 new course requests that would support student needs and interests. We worked closely with CIMAR to align courses and codes for accurate reporting and compliance. We are excited to bring you 9 new courses today for your review. This allows us to expand opportunities for our middle school students. In addition to new courses, we made edits and updates to existing content for clarity and consistency. I would like to take a moment and recognize the members of our committee for their time and efforts in creating this year's planning guide. The Middle School Planning Guide Committee and a collaborative team represent a diverse experience across the district. This group includes leaders from teaching and learning, education services, state and federal programs, as well as specialists in gifted education, professional learning, fine arts, world languages, and digital innovation. We also have instructional coaches for core content areas, principals and assistant principals from our middle schools, and coordinators from CIMAR to ensure accurate course coding and alignment. This broad representation allows us to make informed decisions that reflect the needs of students, staff, and the community. This year, we reviewed 12 new course proposals, resulting in 9 new elective courses for your consideration. Under the category of fine arts, we've added beginning and intermediate dance, giving students a chance to explore movement and performance at different skill levels. We've also introduced sculpture and 3D design, which provides hands-on experience in creating 3-dimensional art. For our IB Middle Years program, we've aligned these new course offerings in the arts, including IB MYP Beginning Dance and IB MYP Intermediate Dance, ensuring that students in the IB pathways have access to the same creative opportunities. These additional courses reflect our commitment to providing diverse and engaging options and hope that these new offerings will provide additional opportunities for students to engage in their passions at the middle school level. In addition to our fine arts offerings, we're excited to share additional new courses that broaden opportunities for middle school students in both STEM and financial literacy. Under engineering and STEM, we've added Coding 3 and Coding 4, which build on foundational coding skills and introduce more advanced programming concepts. These courses are designed to prepare students for a high school computer science pathways and future careers in technology. We have also introduced a financial literacy course that equips students with essential money management skills, including budgeting and understanding financial decision-making, critical life skills that support lifelong success. Finally, we've added a middle school JAG course that will allow students at Tonalea Middle School a head start into Coronado's JAG program. The primary mission of the JAG Middle School program is to help students in grades 6 through 8 develop leadership skills that will help them transition successfully from middle school to high school. This unique elective focuses on student academic performance, school behavior, attendance, confidence, participation, and self-esteem. These courses were selected based on student interest, workforce readiness trends, and feedback from educators. We hope they will spark curiosity and build a strong foundation for high school and beyond. In addition to adding new courses, we made several important updates and revisions to the middle school planning guide to ensure clarity and alignment. First, the cover and table of contents were updated to reflect the new school year, and the middle school directory has been refreshed for accuracy. We added new language in the counseling services and student academic service sections to include specialized academic programs and exceptional student services. Course sequencing pages for ELA Math, Science, Fine Arts, PE, World Languages, and IB MYP have been updated for consistency, and the History and Social Sciences section has been reorganized to reflect an alphabetized core curriculum format. Finally, several course descriptions have been moved from the core curriculum sections to electives, including intervention courses, fine arts, PE, world languages, and math intervention support. These changes make the guide easier to navigate and better reflect how these courses function within the middle school experience. We have removed courses that are no longer aligned with current standards or enrollment trends. These courses included pre-AP algebra, aeronautical science, several world language 1A and 1B courses, game design, and gifted humanities. We've also made a few title changes for clarity and consistency. For example, the computers elective section is now listed as technology. Coding courses have been renamed from CS 101 and 102 to Coding 1 and 2. Several courses have updated descriptions or prerequisite requirements, such as accelerated math, algebra 1, Mandarin Chinese 2, investigation courses, and IB MYP, individuals and societies. Finally, we've added new language in the exceptional student section to better define support for English language development, gifted services, and special education. These changes ensure the guide is accurate, accessible, and aligned with district priorities. Thank you so much, and I'm happy to take any questions or comments or feedback that you have.
Dr. Potensky?
Thank you for this. So many of these electives sound awesome, and I've got a middle schooler who I think would be interested in them. Finding teachers who can teach them and teach them well is challenging. And so I'm curious, how do we know whether these courses, after we approve adding them, actually end up delivering what we hope? How do we know that students are actually learning in these classes, those particular topic areas, that we got the right teacher, and that the course in substance is what it seems in the catalog?
That's a great question, and there is some work to be done in our elective courses at the middle school level in regards to oversight. The middle school electives kind of fall in a not core curriculum category that currently does not really reside in our academic coaches that oversee those. So that's some of the restructuring that we'll be doing for next year. The courses that are being brought forth for your consideration were actually suggested by individual campuses that were part of the request process. And in bringing those forward, had teachers already identified for them. And we know that so much of the elective world at the middle school level comes down to the teacher and who's teaching those classes and the excitement that they're able to bring to those courses. So really just working from my end on the teaching and learning department to really work with those teachers to ensure the dance. I was actually really surprised that we didn't have middle school dance after being in the middle school world here in Scottsdale for a very long time, so I'm excited about that. So that would be overseen by Michelle Irvin. So really just consistency and checking in with those courses as we continue to develop them.
Yeah, if that is a little bit of a kind of middle space that doesn't have good coverage, it is one of the areas that I do hear from parents, that sometimes they get excited, they sign their student up for an elective, you know, and probably urban legend, you know, they took computers and they never used the computer.
Yeah.
Or, you know, they took finance and they never learned,
Yeah,
you know,
it
what
really is.
debits and credits are. So
It's not a gray area, but I mean, as a former middle school principal and teacher, middle school electives were designed to be fun and bring kids in and allow them to explore their passions and their interests. And but there does need to be oversight in that curriculum in order to fulfill the responsibility that we're providing in the planning guide.
Thank you.
Yeah.
On the coding 3 and 4 and AI part of it. So
Yes.
I love the descriptions. I'm glad it's in there. Very fluid topic, technology-wise there. Don't want to put you in the spot if you don't have an answer. This is first read, so we could always follow up. But where is the content coming from? Is someone providing sort of a self-contained module? And then how are we, whatever we is, staying on top of how that changes? Because it literally could change semester to semester.
Correct. Right now, our coding 1 and 2 utilize TechSmart. So it's a vendor that we utilize through The 3 and 4 would piggyback off of that. If we continued with TechSmart, there are additional vendor pathways that actually might improve additional services that would allow us to move into 3 and 4. So while I don't have a definitive answer at this point, I can follow up before the action item. But there are lots of resources out there that we're currently looking at. Our new digital innovation coach, Lotus Kaplan, and I are kind of working through that at this time. We wanted to make sure that it was in the planning guide so that we could get that approved and then start working on that.
Yeah, sort of in the same vein, if we're going to offer it, I want to make sure it's
correct,
as solid as it can be, knowing that that's a tough challenge.
Yeah, and
Thank
it's
you.
the 1 and 2 have been, just from my experience at Tonalea, have been really fulfilling for the students that are engaged in that. There are students that are looking for additional course offerings because they've already gone through 1 and 2 and are ready for more.
You said TechSmart?
TechSmart. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, of course, I'm thrilled to see financial literacy. Thank you for including that. I have at least 4 questions, so bear with me, please.
Okay.
I want to thank you for the citations by page, just to help us get there. I know the one I'm going to study the closest is page 72.
Okay.
I was looking at the research on the best of the financial literacy components that our children need from a K-12 perspective. So part of my question at the end will be, where does this fit in our K-12 vision? And maybe we can talk about that since it's a first read later. But I wanted to just kind of check eventually to crosswalk. You've mentioned budgeting was in there, tracking expenses. Now, I'm not sure that we'll be fully aligned, but it can be roughly aligned. Saving regularly, savings, or an emergency fund, distinguishing needs versus wants, banking knowledge, understanding interest. That's hard and abstract, and I hope by middle school we're introducing that. Avoiding bad debt, using credit wisely. Most of our young adults don't know how their credit score is determined. Setting financial goals, basic investing, understanding inflation, managing income streams, insurance awareness, since it's on our topic later today, avoiding scams. I don't know where that would be introduced, but I'd like to see it in the K-12 vision. Just in terms of, as we become more AI tsunamied, you know, how do we become critical readers financially of where we're getting duped? Tax basics or taxation. Planning for retirement. 12-year-olds don't want to talk about that, so we can probably move through that a different way. Smart spending, conspicuous consumership, record keeping, and continuous learning about it. I just have a real passion that these are skills many of our very wonderful, hardworking parents didn't get either.
Yeah.
And are in difficult situations. So thank you for putting it in there. Thank you for the citation. My question is it in the elective category, and it's not in the math or social sciences?
Correct. It is in the elective category. There are financial standards that are woven throughout. Again, I know speaking from the middle school perspective, 8th grade touches a lot of these briefly as well throughout the standards, but it would be an elective course.
Yeah. I would like to see it one day, as we work towards a K-12 vision, operationalized in a more, a firmer manner in some way that we know our children are leaving school financially ready. And at a one-and-done elective will most likely be selected with the partnership of a interested parent.
Yeah.
And what I'm really concerned about is if this is an elective approach, it will potentially be on the removal list, you know? I look at aeronautical science and think, that was such a great idea, and it just faded.
Yeah.
So somebody got excited about it, it had a pop, and then it faded. And I don't want financial literacy to be a pop. So that's just a personal passion from me. And so I'm going to leave that at comments versus questions, because I heard you say elective. I heard you say, you know, the citations that you're crosswalking. You've heard me say K-12. And I worry about the removal list one day having it on there, because it may not be real attractive to a 12-year-old just yet. Thank you. But we'll get them there.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Amy? Ms. Carney?
Thank you, President Lewis. First of all, I just wanted to say, yeah, I'm excited also to see the financial literacy and then the middle school JAG, because I got to learn about that when I was over the Coronado community, and so I'm happy to see that you're bringing that to Tonalea. I had a question, though. When are you planning to bring this back for second read? Because my concern is that the board has not yet discussed budget cuts on possible programs that are listed in here.
It's on, my understanding is it's on the next board meeting, January 20th, for action item.
Okay, because I would just say in advance that we need to make sure that we have had time to talk through some of the programs that were listed as budget cut opportunities. For one, I will just mention Avid, and I read in here that it said Avid is only offered at Ingleside. Is that true?
Correct, at the moment.
So we're down to just Ingleside with Avid now.
Correct. And
right, well, I mean for the middle school planning guide.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other question is, when I was reading through this, I did not notice anything about the gifted programming at Copper Ridge. Is there a reason?
Are you referring to the all honors programming at Copper Ridge?
I guess, I thought that was considered gifted.
No, the offerings at Copper Ridge, where students in 6th and 7th grade this year are in an all honors pathway, every student, not gifted only students. And so that will continue to be an offering at Copper Ridge. I know that Principal Walker has been working with teachers and families. We've seen some mid-year data that proves and shows there's some strengthening academic outcomes. But at this time, I believe Copper Ridge intends next year to also continue their support of all students accessing honors in ELA, science, and social studies for their core academics.
Okay, so that doesn't need to be listed in the middle school planning guide?
That could be for your consideration. Those are courses. Honors ELA, 6th grade is a course offered at every school. So the courses are listed in the planning guide in that way. I don't know that we call out every single school's specific program models, but should that be a desire, we could consider that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful job.
Thank you.
Thank you. We look forward to hearing more. That brings us to, I have E on here. Should it be D? Anyway. It should be D. We should be D. We just, oopsie. All right, first read, Governing Board Policy KM. Ms. McLennan.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the Governing Board. So the presented for first read is a new Governing Board Policy, KM, that would address memorials. This is being brought forward to your attention and your consideration based upon certain recommendations from the Scottsdale Administrators Association. The district was, unfortunately, had a variety of tragedies last year, and the association and your administrators thought that it might be a good idea to have a policy in place so that there's a very clear set of boundaries with respect to honoring those involved when there has been a tragedy that affects one of your campus, including providing support. This sample policy is taken from the National Association for School Psychologists, and so I would provide it for your consideration. And welcome to take any feedback back that I can edit the policy for a second read. The board also has the option of not considering the adoption of this policy if you think that the needs of those who have been involved in a tragedy can be served on an individual basis, as you have done in your prior history.
Mr. Sharkey?
Thanks for bringing this up, Ms. McLennan. Appreciate it, and especially given the tragedies we experienced last year. Thanks for mentioning this and brought up by the SAA. I was curious of why this was brought to the table. Are you aware of any issues over the past year or prior that necessitates a policy? Was there disagreement or discrepancy that said, hey, we don't want to do this if it happens in the future? Can we have policy? Like, what problem is it trying to solve?
So my understanding is that there have been certain instances in which, for instance, families come onto a campus expecting to find a memorial that was there at one time, but given construction, it's no longer there. And so some of your school administrators have had to address that issue. So that's one issue that was brought up. I believe that there may also have been issues concerning honoring students at graduation. What is a uniform way of doing that? As well as making sure that in the immediacy after a tragedy that that utilization of the school campus is used in a uniform way for any types of gatherings. So those are some of the issues that I know about. I don't know if Dr. Dzinski would like to speak on that topic, or if you have anything to add. No.
I'll just say my concern is being overly prescriptive in policy. I would hope that empathy and common sense would kind of get us where we need to go. I understand that may not always be the case. Reading through and understand this is just a sample and not the final wording, but there are things in there that circumstantially, if there were issues with the deceased or things that happened, it may not be good to put them in the yearbook or have signage or recognize them at graduation. And again, I just fear being overly prescriptive and having too much policy, and therefore when, hopefully it never happens again, but if it does, that we now have the added burden of having to make sure we follow policy. And so I respect those that have been directly involved, because that's not me. But I just hope we're solving more problems than we're creating. And so I'm a little hesitant to be so prescriptive about if this happens, here are the things, because most of the wording in here is we will do this. There's not a lot of should or may, and that just seems like very, very prescriptive to me. So that's my hesitation from the read.
I'm curious, who brought this forward to you?
It was brought forward by the SAA.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
gotcha, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead, Dr. Potensky, and then Dr. Menzel.
I'm happy to
Okay.
see.
Well, I was just going to add part of the reason for, and I would argue, notwithstanding maybe some changes in wording, the reason for a policy is that across our schools, even if you just take the 5 high schools, if one school treats a situation in a certain way and a different school does it differently, it becomes hard to know what the guidepost is, and then families will compare and say, well, you didn't do enough or you did too much. And so having some parameters about what's a reasonable expectation for how the school can be supportive ensures some level of consistency. I appreciate the will, which is very prescriptive, versus some guardrails that ensure a level of consistency across the district without being overly prescriptive. I think if we can strike that balance, it would be helpful.
Yeah, my views are very similar to Mr. Sharkey's, that we hope these incidents are very rare, and when they do occur, they're always very particular, and that feels challenging and obviously very emotionally loaded, and that feels very challenging to kind of execute this type of policy. And there's always the effect of following the policy in creating concerns from parents that we're not doing X, Y, or Z that would seem to them to be the human thing to do. I'm curious, I understand this came from the National Association of School Psychiatrists, did you say?
That's correct.
Did the SAA have a chance to review this? And is this also their view based on our traditions and practices and what they've seen pragmatically? Does it reflect that, or are we starting from a completely generic starting point? And if it's a generic starting point, how do we then, is it in the next read that we'll actually see what the district thinks is the right policy for Scottsdale?
So let me answer your first question first. This was distributed to Dr. Dzinski as the head of the SAA, and I believe that it was reviewed with the superintendent. There was suggested changes, so the memorials on facilities and grounds, the sample policy had had parameters for memorials, and it was a suggestion of SAA that be removed so that their memorials would not be permitted because of the concern that I mentioned before. So that's first. Getting to your second question, I'm happy to assist the governing board in workshopping this. If you want to have anyone specifically work with me to try to meet some of your concerns, and then bring it back to you for a second and third read if you want, or we can proceed forward with just using past practice and not having a policy on it, as I stated initially.
I would be comfortable with this more as a procedural guideline, so that there is continuity among the schools. I agree with Mr. Sharkey on the words "will" is a little too confining, and might shift to, you know, for example, if they don't have a school newspaper and we say it will be put in the school newspaper, you know, may be put in the school newspaper is more comfortable for me. If it is to live in policy, it feels like a good guidance document. I'm not comfortable with it as policy to be overly regulatory, but I would go with the board as a whole, wherever we want to take it from here. Do you have an interest in working on this more?
So yes, and just for Dr. Menzel, would the SAA feel put out if the board said, no, we think this is too prescriptive, please leave it? Would that cause more issues? Does it sound like, obviously they brought it forward, so it sounds like they would love to have some sort of guideline, would be preferable to nothing?
So I think that's accurate. So
Okay.
to have nothing means that it's at the discretion of each principal and what they may have done at that site in previous unfortunate situations. And then that may then translate to another school, and the facts might be different. So even if you pare this down and create more general guidance so that there's some guardrails, and I'm using the memorials as sort of the example, you can walk on some campuses and no one knows what that memorial was there for. At the time, it meant something to someone. Or someone comes looking for the memorial, and because a tree died and was removed, it never got replaced, you know, you have people who are hurt by the fact that it's no longer there. So I think there's a way to maybe meet in the middle on this to say, here are some basic expectations, but we recognize that they're context specific, and we all agree that we hope very rare, because it's an awful thing when you have to deal with the death of a student and on any campus. Yet we also want to be sure that how we honor and recognize the deceased student and how we support the families is somewhat consistent across the district.
I'm happy to take a pass at it. Ms. McLennan, if you want to send me an editable version, I'll put my legal hat on and get my red pen out and save us an hour of billable time of you and take a stab at it. So I'm more than happy to do that and hopefully come up with something that works for all of us.
Well, I would look forward to reading the bleeding pen on that page, Mr. Sharkey. So, thank you very much.
Ms. McLellan. Nice first read. Thank you. All right, we are now at the.
I've still got.
I'm so sorry.
Keep missing
Ms.
me.
Carney, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, are other districts using this policy as presented?
Madam President, Ms. Carney, they are not. This is a unique policy, and I have not, you know, I work in the policy space. I have not seen a number of different districts adopt this type of arrangement.
Okay, then lastly, my other concern with this is it's not, there's no legal references and there's no cross-references to other policy.
So I believe the direction I'm getting is to work with Mr. Sharkey to do it as a procedure and not bring it back for a second read. That's what I'm hearing from the board. If you do want to have this brought back as a second read, I'm happy to add those things.
Thank you.
Thank you for your summary. Any other comments? Okay. We are going to make a motion for the consent agenda, which will be 9A through E and H and I. I move that 9A through E, H, and I be approved. I need a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It passes unanimously. All right, we are now on 9G. Ms. Carney.
Thank you. I was just wondering, with the change to the IVP, the Identity Verified Prince Card, how long, when did we make that change in that requirement?
ID.
On the drivers, the IHB card? I believe that was a new DPS rule.
Well, the DPS rule has to do with whether or not they have a CDL license.
Right.
But her question was with regards to the cards that we now use.
The IVP.
Yeah.
I can get more information on that for you, Ms. Carney. I'm happy to do that.
That's okay. My main concern is, are our contracted transportation providers, are those drivers also using, are they required to use the IVP
No.
fingerprint card as well?
They do,
Can you turn
they
your
do
microphone
background
on,
check.
mic on?
It is it not?
We don't see green.
I see green.
Okay. The contracted service drivers that we do, they have background checks that are required of them. I do, off the top of my head, don't recall any of them requiring those specific cards. With this change, it does make it a little bit easier to transport in smaller vehicles. So of course, the goal for us is to be able to hire perhaps some drivers and get away from the contracted, but that is not, to my knowledge, I don't recall that being a requirement for our contracted services.
Okay, could I ask for David to give head of transportation to give the board an update on that, as far as what are the requirements for our contracted service drivers, because I believe they should be the same as our bus drivers. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? All right, I'd like to move that we approve 9G, the approval of the revised job description for driver and bus driver as presented. All those in favor, I need a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It passes unanimously. All right. Shannon Crozier is now going to present for us under action item 10A, approve the award of request for proposal 26001, employee medical and pharmacy benefits.
Is this one on? Okay. Good evening, Board President Lewis, Vice President Sharkey, members of the board, Dr. Menzel and guests. Tonight, we are bringing forth a recommendation for medical and pharmacy. It was a request of the governing board to have us go out and do an RFP for medical and pharmacy, just because it's really expensive. So we will take a look at what the process followed with that was, and hopefully address some of the concerns that were brought forth earlier this evening. But so far, with the process followed, we contracted with USI Employee Benefits to help with this process. Medical and pharmacy is incredibly detailed and specialized, and that is not the forte of the district employees here. And so we felt it was really important to have somebody with more background in that area to help us through that process. So we did contract with them. I'd like to thank Denise Jewell, who's here from USI, who helped us through that process. They worked with our purchasing department and myself on the scope and RFP requirements. And then that request was sent out on September 19th. This is, like I said, a pretty hefty RFP to do and information to go through. So that went on September. We sent it to 36 potential vendors. We did not limit it to direct, contract, or trust. We put that out to anybody with medical and pharmacy. And that RFP closed on October 15th. I do want to say there's a lot that is pulled on an RFP, so I want to also thank Kairos, who worked quite a bit with us and USI to go through that process and get all the required information to help evaluate just pulling all of the claims information and administrative fees that go along with that. Within that process, we received 4 responses. 2 of them were trusts, 2 of them were direct contracts, so directly with a vendor. USI reviewed those submissions for completeness and then analyzed the responses. One of the things they also did for us is they did a cost analysis, looking at what our experience is, what our claims have been, and then putting that through an actuarial study to look at what they believe those costs would be moving into the 26-27 year to help the team evaluate this process. Because we were looking at both trusts and direct contract, we asked them to also include an estimated price for a third-party administrator, knowing that if you have a trust, there's somebody who takes care of all of that behind-the-scene work. If we were to go direct contract, we knew that we would need to hire a third-party administrator to help us with those technical things that come along with medical and pharmacy. So when we looked at the price of things, we did ask them to include that in so that we could compare both options as close to possible, knowing that they're not exactly the same, but to get them as close as possible. With that process as well, there is procurement rules that we have to follow, as well as there are some timing issues that we're hitting with when this needed to be completed. So I do want to apologize. I know there was a comment made from the audit committee if there was some kind of misunderstanding. I know we did talk with them and the self-insurance trust that there are some concerns timing with this, being that to be able to have this ready for open enrollment in the spring, we're really at needing to, we originally were going to do this and have this to the board in December, but felt we needed to take more time. But because of the amount of time that it will take if we were to change vendors, knowing that time is of the essence. So we did address those. I know there's, the audit committee is also looking at the, at auditing the medical, and that was a concern that was brought up, is knowing that things and how the timing was going to work wasn't going to be the best fit there. But we also have to follow procurement rules, and so there isn't an opportunity for us to discuss with anybody before this goes to the governing board, outside of the audit committee, outside of the RFP committee that was selected, to discuss who the decision was made with. There's a confidentiality agreement that all RFP reviewers have to sign that basically says what was discussed in that room has to stay, and that we cannot share what the recommendation is with anyone until it comes to the board. With that process and the review, we asked each of the 4 employee groups to give us 2 representatives from each employee group. We got that for the most part, and I want to thank those that did participate. We had 2 from everyone except for the site administrators, where there was an issue that came up that eliminated one of them out. But I want to thank them. We had Angela Lucero and TJ Buckley from Certified, Michelle Jennings and Julie Gildersleeve from Classified, Amanda Rand from Site Administration, Patty Bilbrey and Sarah Torian from District Admin, and then our benefits specialist, Kimberly Davis, for being on the first round of this. It's intensive, and there's a lot of thought that goes into this. People have a lot of emotions and feelings and ideas on insurance, rightfully so. You're talking about their medical choices. And so there was a lot of review that went into this from this team, looking at what the options are, looking at other things beyond just cost, making sure that whatever decision was made, that there was that we were the least disruptive to our employees. Anytime you make a change, there's going to be disruptions, but we wanted to make sure that we impacted as few people as possible. So there was a lot of discussions based around that, especially when it comes to doctors, pharmacy, and changing your health savings account can be very difficult and burdensome and costly because there are fees with it. So there was a lot of discussion based around those areas when we looked at this. Like I said, we did a 2-step process. So we had the employee groups look at it and our benefits specialist review. Then myself, Dr. Cruz, and our payroll director reviewed it and reviewed really all of them, but we looked at the top 2 that were brought forth from the employee groups, and all agreed on the recommendation of Blue Cross Blue Shield. Based on that offer, it is direct with Blue Cross Blue Shield PPO. The pharmacy benefits would change to Optum RX, which has different tiers, which in some cases will benefit some employees, meaning that the prescription drugs might be lower for them based on where it's tiered. Some employees might see an increase. It really is dependent, but we did look at how many people that would impact. They offered a $200,000 wellness fund credit for the district to use, as well as a $500,000 Optum pharmacy credit for year 1 and 2, and a $250,000 Optum pharmacy credit for year 3. So with that, and again factoring in what was an estimated cost for a third-party administrator. Looked at between those two about a savings of $956,000. We do have representatives here. Like I said, Denise Jewell is here, as well as representatives from Blue Cross Blue Shield. Our intent is to keep the plans as similar, right, at least this first year, as what they are right now, the offerings with the PPO and the various HSA plans. However, we are talking about adding an additional plan, depending on what that looks like. One of the things that Blue Cross Blue Shield offers is something called Persano Health, which is kind of like an all-inclusive clinic that if you are on a PPO is completely free for the employee. If they're on an HSA, it's free once you meet your deductible, but because of HSA regulations, there is a cost for them. But one of the ideas we have is looking at a fifth option that could be lower cost for employees, but they would have some requirements of using the Persano Healthcare or Persano clinics to help keep those costs lower for the district and for them. But so we are, like I said, trying to keep it as minimally disruptive to our employees as possible. I think there's a pretty good crossover from United Healthcare doctors to Blue Cross Blue Shield. We know there'll be a little bit of change within the pharmacy, and then we hope to be able to keep costs as contained as possible, knowing that health insurance is just expensive all around. But we're trying to find ways that we can help our employees with that.
Shannon, will you go back a slide, please?
Sure.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Sharkey?
So, just kind of feel like we're bearing the lead. The cost of the plans for our staff, is there a chart that says, here's what we're paying today versus, or is it we set that through the
We set
trust?
that once the process gets going. And because we're self-insured, there's not like they come to us and say, this is what you shall charge. We have to work with them, and it'll be important for us to get a third-party administrator in place very quickly to help work through that process. But we will then work through them. What we've done, the process we did last year, and I envision doing the same thing this year, is when we get this is the bottom line of what you've got to get to, we think your claims will be, your costs will be, then we will work with our employee groups again, identifying and working through the process of, okay, this is the different plans we have, how many people we think will be on each plan, and then pricing it out based off of where we need to land to get to that bottom line.
So did the RFP only do the cost side of the equation and not the revenue side?
Yes, the RFP is just what options are out there for medical, and are there ways that we could be saved through that?
Okay. The $950K in savings, is that recurring annual?
So the fund allowance, my understanding is, I did not hear that that was a one-time.
The 500,000 is for 2 years.
Yeah.
It lowers, it drops to 200.
Yeah, for the optimum pharmacy credit, that's for years 1 and 2, and then year 3 it would drop. So for the first 2 years, I'm going to confirm the wellness fund allowance. The first 2, yes.
Do you mind coming to the microphone to join in the tandem responses? Thank you.
So then year 1 savings is 956, year 2 savings is 456?
No. Year 1 and 2 would be 956. And then year 3
Would drop by 250.
would drop by 250.
And then year 4 would drop by 250 after that.
Right. There's some other elements that will come into play as it relates to the future year costs. One being the potential addition of this Persano plan, which, we've got representatives from Blue Cross Blue Shield here. That plan is designed to slow your cost trends going forward, and the cost of the plan is lower than some of the plans that are being offered by the district today. So the idea, and we heard it loud and clear when we met with the evaluation committee, that affordability for staff, for their own coverage, but also for their families is important. So we're trying to develop our strategies to create more affordable options for staff and their families.
So just by projections, though, on the cost side, in year 4, it'll be 200K less than where we are today, assuming all things given.
Yeah, everything stays the same, yeah.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as you think about the the fifth plan of affordability family package. Where are we in our thinking about that? Because that's a high priority for our staff.
Yeah, we've done some initial pricing with some guidance from Blue Cross in terms of understanding the cost relativities. And the plans are pricing out about 10% below-ish, about 10% below what a non-Persano plan would price out.
So with the volume of our staff apparently seemingly smaller, I'm either excited or duped. I don't know which. This is where I need financial literacy.
We ran this based off of the information we have now, the claims that we have now projecting out through this year. I mean, obviously, every year the staff changes. The amount of people who even take our insurance changes. We've seen that decrease as well, partly, I think, because families are saying, I can't afford the insurance, or I can only take it on that. But when we looked at pricing within this, it was looking at what do we know now and comparing that now across all.
Our actual costs with our actual employees?
Yeah.
Because that's
Yes.
got to be how you're doing your projections.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, your projections, yeah.
85% of the cost of the plan is how employees and
Current.
their families are actually using the plan.
Okay.
And incurring health care.
So if this is say a net 200K difference, looking at our annual expenses that we do, that's down to negligible, which, Shannon, to me means realistically, we're not going to be able to change the employee cost of the plans that much.
It's, that's a question that came up during the RFP when we were reviewing it, was how much is everybody going to save?
Right.
And that's not a question. There are so many different variables that could come into play. Do we give everybody the same, do we give every plan and then family, employee, children, do we cut them all the same amount? Well, that may not be the right method to go. Do you take everything by a percentage? Do you specifically target certain plans? When we were building the plans for this year and the cost for this year, we made sure that we kept one plan, the 3,500, 3,700 plan. We made sure that we kept that the same rate as what it was last year. That's the difficult thing. I mean, it's great to be self-insured. That means we get to decide how things go, but it means that there's thousands of different variables and ways that we could slice the pie,
Right,
but
but-
at the end of the day, we got to get to the same number. So it's hard to say an employee is going to feel a $50 savings or $100 savings because maybe we don't touch the employee-only portion, but we target the family portion so that we can bring those costs down. That's what makes it a little bit more difficult.
And that product mix that we do today in the past X years, and I respect what you and the team collectively have done, right? The PPO, the high deductible, 1,700, 3,000, 5,000 plans. What's our mix? What's our cost? We're still going to do that, and we still can turn all those levers and the variables. If the expense side of the ledger is $200K cheaper on a $10 million a year basis,
It's not going to make a huge difference.
it's not going to be, right. It doesn't seem like, again, the lead is, what's this going to cost our employees and will they save from there? And I'm hearing there's not a lot of wiggle room to change that.
And if
I
I
mean-
could add,
Yeah.
we're asking employees to take a operational burden in terms of the potential disruption of providers without the ability to say confidently, but we're doing this in order to help bend the curve of your healthcare costs.
That is absolutely another thing, a topic that was heavily discussed is what is the burden that it puts on our benefits staff, which is a staff of 2, as well as what it.
No, I'm
how
talking about
it-
every employee. Every employee
Yeah, as well
now
as, well, there's the
worries,
staff like that have
am I
to
going
set
to
all
lose
this
my
up.
doctor? Is my doctor going to be covered? And we don't have the ability to say, yes, but we're doing it in order to lower your healthcare costs.
Yes, and when it really comes down to, and one of the things I think we have to look at is, one of the biggest issues that impacts us and then impacts everybody is the cost and the choices that we make and how we utilize our healthcare. And so I think part of that and part of what that wellness fund, we talked to another school district that's doing this. They use those dollars to really inform staff to help drive down those costs and claims.
The only way to really address healthcare for us is, with any meaningful impact, is really about how do we drive down claims cost. Because the rest of it really just falls in, I mean, they're giving us some credits, but a lot of it falls into administrative costs. But the bulk of what we pay is in claims. And so it really comes down, if we really want to drive down medical insurance, it really comes down to how do we drive down our claims and those claims costs.
So on that note, I know with the current model, we have the teledoc, EAP, nurse navigators. Are there similar plans, programs in this new world? Because those seem to be benefiting and driving down that. So is it fairly one-to-one in offerings there?
Yeah, they call them different things.
Right.
You know, we're not going to have nurse navigators. That's something that Kairos, as the trust, has hired. But they have, I don't think they call it teledoc, they call it.
I don't need the details.
Yeah, but I mean, they have the same type of things. When it comes to the EAP plans and those types of things, so the second part of this covers medical and pharmacy. There's a second part that's ancillary. That would cover like your EAP, dental, vision, those types of things. That RFP is going out. If it didn't go out today, it should be going out tomorrow. And so that would address those. The thing is, yes, we want to keep the same services as much as possible. They may have different names. I know there's nurses that are through Blue Cross Blue Shield. There's, like I said, the teledoc things. There might be services that, you know, Kairos is offering that we may not have the same type of thing because they're offering it as a trust with individual packages. We can do RFPs to do ancillary on that. But a lot of those same things, it's not going to look exactly the same,
Sure,
but
sure.
The big things should have matches.
Sure. And just one comment I want to make because of the comment from the audit committee, and there's colleagues of mine from the audit committee here. I looked at my notes. We had a September meeting in the audit committee saying that it took time to get the NDA in place to do the audit. The audit won't be done in time for the RFP because that was going out a week after that meeting. But we said the audit will be done in the spring. However, we'll get benefit from the partial audit that would be ongoing to inform the RFP. And then we said we'll have another update on it in December, and we didn't have it on the December agenda. So I'm not taking sides on it either way. Mr. Klosky, I appreciate you making the comments. Just saying that we did address it there, but I don't know what happened between September and December on that. So just to put that out there, I'm glad you brought it up as a comment. So thank you.
I'd be happy to weigh in.
Do you want to comment on that?
So the December moved to January 16th because the delay in getting the information that we needed to do the prescription drug audit. And I think it's relevant here that the projected savings, you see the $500,000 Optum Pharmacy credit for year 1 and year 2, addresses in part what we aren't going to be able to get if we stay with Kairos. I'm not antitrust, but I know that we need to do something different if we're going to be able to drive down the cost. And I asked previously Shannon in terms of what's an exit provision. We're not locked in for 5 years. If this isn't working and we need to make another change, we have opportunities to do that down the road. But what we know is if we keep doing what we're doing now, the costs are going to continue to go up, and we're not going to be able to address the excessive pressure on our employees with respect to family coverage, which is why that fifth option is really important, and being able to work directly with the Blues versus through an intermediary. So while we're self-insured and we get the benefit of that from Kairos, what we get in the Kairos arrangement is they bid it out. They had UMR. At one point, they had Blue Cross Blue Shield. So they're the ones who pick what our insurance company is going to be. This changes our relationship, the dynamic between the district and the provider, in a way that gives us more ability to customize based on the need of our employees than we have when we're in the trust. We have different kinds of benefits from the trust. This is different, and having spoken with a healthcare professional from Microsoft, someone who helps navigate in this space, his response to me was that this is absolutely a preferred alternative for a district of our size dealing with these challenges.
I'll just kind of put my position out here. To me, this is the staff decision. I appreciate Mr. Buckley supporting it here. They're the ones who are paying the premiums. They're the ones who have to deal with doctors and pharmacies. So, my comments about the financial viability are me trying to get a gauge on where the dollars might lie. But if the folks involved in the decision are confident that there's buy-in from staff, from those who will be impacted, that overrides my opinion any day, because those are the ones who are impacted by this.
Dr. Potensky?
So you touched on, I mean, naturally for employees, a concern is the degree of doctor overlap or provider overlap. It sounds like we don't have there's not a precise calculation where we can say 90% of providers that our employees were using are also covered by, or is there a metric like that?
So we requested that data from Kairos, and they only gave us the top 50 providers that were utilized, which was a 100% match.
Okay.
So Blue Cross confirmed that. We can't say with complete certainty that there won't be a couple of physicians or services that will fall out of the Blue Cross network. But what I can tell you from my personal experience is the network overlap between United Healthcare and Blue Cross in Maricopa County is virtually identical. It's virtually identical. So from a doctor and hospital perspective, there should be minimal disruption. And I just want to comment, if that's okay, on the pharmacy. So we did look at the, Blue Cross has a direct relationship and a direct partnership with Optum RX, which is the PBM that would be providing the pharmacy benefits under this structure. And we compared the contract terms that were provided and quoted by Optum to the current Maxer, and they changed their name.
I only know it as Maxer.
To the current Maxer contract, and all components of the deal are improved. So the discounts off of the drug pricing, in addition to the rebate position, are all improved. So, you know, we feel confident. Blue Cross did do a formulary disruption. So in looking at where all the drugs sit on their formulary in comparison to what members have today, there are, to Shannon's point earlier, there are as many people who benefit from the formulary change as members that will be disrupted. So the formulary is actually pretty neutral, in my opinion, in terms of the overall impact.
Thank you. You anticipated my second
Yeah.
question. And then the third, is there a difference in what is covered? So for example, Kairos covered IVF.
Yep.
And
Yep.
Blue Cross
Right.
does not.
So that's the beautiful thing about being self-insured, is you really control the provisions and your plan design around how you want benefits to pay. So the starting point for Blue Cross will be, and they've already looked at the benefits and can support all of the benefits based on the summary plan description that we provided to them, that was provided to us from Kairos. There will be they may have some recommendations around some things that they might recommend be done differently, and that will be up to HR and finance to determine what makes the most sense. But we will go through that process.
We get to design that.
Yes.
Yeah, like most
Yes.
normal people, I find
That's
this
right.
topic to
That's
be
right.
Byzantine. Not that you're abnormal.
Yeah.
And then my last question, just coming back to the process question, I'm a little confused. I would have thought from the earlier comment that something like this would normally go to the audit committee before coming to the board, and then it seemed as if actually it wouldn't go to the audit committee because our procurement rules wouldn't allow it to
So-
anyway. So the last
Dr.
time we changed providers, what was the process in terms of any steps between the RFP process and the board ultimately getting a recommendation? And are we deviating from that this time?
Well, the last time we changed, we went from a trust, Valley Schools Trust, to Kairos Trust. When you are doing a trust, it is not required to follow an RFP process. So there wasn't an RFP. It was the CFO administrative team basically saying we believe we should move from here to here. And I'm sure there was anticipated cost savings and reasons behind why that choice was made. It would have to go to the board for approval, so it would have
But
been.
would it have gone to the audit committee first?
No.
No, we didn't even have an audit committee back then.
committee,
Yeah. It did not go to, I don't think we had a self-insurance trust, but it didn't include medical, so it wouldn't have even gone to that. But because there is that you have to have certain people who are a part of that review process within the procurement law. You can have a community member, but that's not something you could do in an open meeting to take to like an entire audit committee to say, here's this process. Because it would require, it's a procurement which requires governing board, that's why it would come to you first. And I'm gonna look at Jennifer to make sure that I'm not off on something procurement-wise.
Madam President, thank you, Ms. Crusher. The procurement code would permit for community members to be on an RFP committee. So that would be permitted. But I think ultimately, factually, in this instance, it would have been difficult to run both processes, both through the audit committee and through an RFP process at the same time.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to add that we did an RFP. We didn't change providers, but we did an RFP a couple of years ago. That also didn't run through the audit committee. So the audit committee is looking at areas where we can improve. It narrowed in on the prescription drug piece because we identified that as a particular concern based on other conversations and seeing what was happening in the market and not certain that we were getting the best value for the dollar. So we wanted to look at, are we actually seeing all the rebates that we earn? Are there other things that could be restructured that would maximize our savings on the prescription drug benefit? So it's truly an audit of what we were experiencing then. That was why there was some angst about the timing, because we knew we had to move forward on the RFP for health insurance. And we also knew that it was going to take a while to finish the prescription drug audit. But we do believe that there's still going to be benefit from what we learned in that audit, even with a change in providers here. But the way the audit committee is structured is it's not set up to be a recommender of health insurance options for the district. It's really looking at what are the opportunities for improvement. We've had audits related to construction management, audits related to processes within human resources. So that's a different function than the RFP process, which is governed by a different statute.
I would say that also would be the case of the Self-Insurance Trust Board. So the Self-Insurance Trust Board was aware that we were doing an RFP process, but again, they weren't, and I couldn't even tell them beforehand, this is who we're recommending to the governing board.
Relative to the wellness fund allowance, is that new to us or have we had one?
We have not had one. This year we designated as part of the costs for us through Kairos to have a designated nurse navigator. So that would be but we funded that through, through this, it got added into the dollar amount we had to come up to for the final dollar amount. But we have not had a wellness fund. We've talked quite a bit about, do we need to have something to encourage staff members to do certain, healthy choices. That's something we've done in the past, is offered, a credit if you walk so many steps a month or, do certain checkups and whatnot. So I envision that being something we can, that's something I think that we need to look at, of how can we address and make it work the best way for us. And again, help to address lowering those claim costs.
Exactly.
And being healthier.
Well, it's shown that it pays off financially.
Mm-hmm.
You have a healthier group of employees, there's less claims.
Yeah.
And so I was just curious, how did we get to the $200,000 wellness fund allowance? Was that required as part of the agreement, and is that cash coming to the district and then we get to create a program with that?
Correct. That's correct. Yes. Blue Cross is willing to give the district a check for $200,000. They actually have dedicated wellness consultants on staff that will be available to support the district in designing a wellness program, and we can bring resources on site to help.
I assume that's one time?
No, that will be ongoing.
Annual?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Great.
And we did reach out to Tempe Elementary, I believe it was, who is on Blue Cross Blue Shield, to speak to them exactly about what they're doing with their wellness fund and get some ideas. So that was one of the, when we were asking for some references back from districts that are on this, that was one of the things that they talked about, is that they actually pay a person to be a wellness coordinator within the district, within those funds.
Yeah, I've seen it be very effective, so I find that exciting and a little lighter heart than the other parts of our important discussion.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? All right, I make a motion to approve the award of RFP request 26001, employee medical and pharmacy benefits.
I second the motion.
It's not listed, so I didn't, to Blue Cross Blue Shield of Arizona.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you for your hard work and many hours. Our next agenda item is to select a delegate and alternate to the Arizona School Board Association's Delegate Assembly. I served in that role last year, and I'm happy to do it again. I know that you guys are chomping at the bit for this one. So, you know, I don't want to take up any space if that's your pleasure. But if you would like me to continue as your delegate, I will.
I nominate. I'm in the business of nominating you.
It's
so
a selection. You don't have to nominate.
I have no interest in doing it.
I just have a question. Is there a conflict with you being on the, aren't you on the ASBA board?
There's not, and thank you for asking. Yes, I am on the Arizona School Board's governing board, and several people have served in both functions. So there's no conflict for ASBA, nor us, unless I need to recuse myself for something that one of us is involved in, but it wouldn't affect policy or anything we're doing.
Okay, and you
But
don't
thank
ta-
you for
and
asking.
you don't take compensation from them?
I do not take compensation, but if it's offered, I'll let you know.
No, I'm just confirming that.
That's great.
Thank you.
Are you comfortable with me serving as your delegate? I'm really comfortable handing it over to anybody else who would like it. All right, we did not have a delegate, an alternate last time. Would somebody like to join here and there and get acquainted with ASBA's delegate assembly? All right, I will show up at everything. Okay. Is that good enough? We don't need to do we need a vote on that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we need a motion.
I make a motion that Dr. Donna Lewis be the delegate and alternate to the ASBA.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, passes 5-0. Thanks, guys. Item C, approval of selection of audit committee member.
So I want to commend the chair of the audit committee, Sarah Regan, for the work that she did in guiding the review of numerous community members who applied for the audit committee. We had an exceptional group of individuals and a larger than typical pool. And so we were grateful to be able to have that option. We narrowed it down to 3 candidates that had the range of experience that are identified in the governing board policy. And ultimately, the committee reached consensus on the recommendation of Derek Hampshire to serve on the audit committee to replace Patty Beckman. At that meeting, board member Sharkey recused himself because he was going to be able to vote tonight on this topic. And so it was a 3-0 vote by the audit committee, unanimous, to recommend Derek to serve in replacement of Patty.
And I'll just reiterate the fact that we had an amazing pool of candidates, and also that what Sarah did in her job of vetting and creating a rubric and talking to. So very impressed by the process.
Would you like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that Derek Hampshire is selected as the newest member of the audit committee.
I will second that.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously 5-0. All right, item D, approval of selection of self-insurance trust board trustee.
Yes, Board President Lewis, Vice President Sharkey, members of the board. We had a vacancy that occurred just from the normal term limit ending that's been sitting vacant for the past couple of months. We, like the audit committee, we put both of those options, or both of those applications out there through Parent Square, and gosh, we got a lot of applications for that as well, so that was great to see. Some were employees, some were not employees, they were just members of the community, but we did also have, I want to say somewhere between 12 to 15 applications for that, which was wonderful to see. We followed basically the same process as the audit committee. The members of the Self-Insurance Trust Board were given all of the applications. We had to take out the ones that were employees, as we can only have one employee on that committee, but Anyone who was not an employee was forwarded to the members of the self-insurance trust, and they were asked to rank them based off of what was in the applications. And so the recommendation that was pretty unanimous from the the Self-Insurance Trust Committee was to recommend John Carey, and that is for a 3-year term, which would go July 1st, 2025, so we're already partway through it, through June 30th of 2028.
And I'll be abstaining because I was part of the selection voting process as a member of the trust board.
Questions or comments regarding John Kerry's selection? Want to make a motion?
I move that John Kerry be appointed.
I second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It passes 4-0 with 1 abstention. Item E, and we're going to reverse that, right? Okay, we're going to do item F. Action to revise governing board policy JC to create a standing committee regarding boundary design. This is a first wave, and so we're, a first read, so we're waiving to go straight to second read of the policy. Ms. Carney?
Thank you, President Lewis. So I brought forward an addition to policy JC to include a planning and boundary design advisory committee, which I've been asking for the consideration of this committee since October 7th, and didn't get it on the agenda for discussion until December 9th. But because I understand the need to move quickly on this due to employees and families needing to know the new boundaries and pertinent information, I brought this as an action item tonight. Unfortunately, I feel this committee should have been formed long ago, but here we are, and would like to hear your
I think that we've had this, thank you. I think we've had this conversation so many times that I think I'll just move to approve agenda item 8. Where are we at? 9?
I have some comments.
And
That's okay.
respectfully, this is the first time we're actually seeing a specific proposal.
So
I think.
I'm still talking.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I'm just trying to find the right item here. Yeah, so I move to approve action item 10F.
second.
Okay, the item's been moved and seconded. Now we'll go into discussion.
This is the first time that I think a specific policy structure has actually been put forward to the board. I know that in the past there was discussion that we should have a committee, but it wasn't really specifically defined. I think there was reference to the MESA committee, which I committed to learning about and did my best to read the materials that were sent out. I think this is a pretty significant committee if we were to put it in place. So from a process perspective, I don't love the idea that we're skipping the first read, second read sort of approach. So to the contrary of what was said, while the idea of it certainly has been discussed, this is the first time the board is being asked to consider a very specific structure and mandate. And I think that's something that should span more than one board meeting. And I will defer to Mr. Sharkey, but I have a bunch of questions also.
So JC says the board determines the boundaries. So we have that ability, so that's set. BDE says we can set up a committee for an advisory committee for whatever reason, and it has the specifics of how that is formed, and it says the committee will automatically dissolve once the purpose for which it was formed has been satisfied. So I don't see a need to change any policy. BDE says we can form a committee. So we talked about this last month. And actually I was very supportive and appreciative that you wanted to have community involvement and an advisory committee. The policy seems to already allow that. BDE says if you or any board member puts a proposal on the table, says I want to form a committee, here is the goal of that committee, and then we vote on whether to form it or not. And then as BDE says, once that goal is achieved, that committee dissolves. So I already see all the tools at our fingertips to do this. Put together a proposal. We want a boundary committee to do A, B, and C. We vote on it, and I would vote yes to have that committee, and then when it's done, it's gone. So I don't see the need to modify policy. I see all the tools already there. So am I not seeing something that isn't already included in our policy?
I just looked back at when the audit committee was formed in 2021 and just modeled this after what they did. Because
So-
this is not going to be a short-term, what my goal is, or what I was hoping, is that we would understand we need a high-level committee for a few years on this. And that's why like I said, I looked at what was done to create the audit committee, and that's what I had done here.
So you want it as a long-term persistent committee?
Yes, a PABDAC is a long-term committee, like Mesa has used it for, I don't know, a decade or more.
So
It's a
I
continual.
apologize, I didn't do my homework on Mesa. So what is its goal? Because I see what I like about BDE is you state a goal of a committee, form it, and once the goal's been achieved, it dissolves. What is this persistent purpose that's different? Because like we're talking about 10E next, which says we made a decision as a board about changes to schools. We now need to have discussion about boundaries, and we'll include the community in that. That to me is a very temporal committee that will be formed. I'm not understanding why this needs to be a persistent committee if it's about boundaries. Boundaries to me come into play when we have decisions to make, like a school closure.
Well, it would have been helpful if we would have had this years ago, because we did reboundary a few years ago. This is something that is ongoing in school districts, and this is just something that actually helps community members get involved. And it's, the superintendent would decide how often they would meet, what exactly would be done. This is just what I brought forward because no one else was. So I feel like that there is an oversight committee that needs to happen, and this is what I feel needs to be done, and like I said, open for.
I wasn't here during the last boundary division. When you say oversight that needs to happen, why does it need to happen? What went wrong? What in our current process, in your mind, is insufficient when it comes to how we do redistricting?
Well, I also wasn't on the board then. That was right before we got on, but that changed Pima's boundaries at that point. And obviously, we see that affected Pima. So maybe if we had a bigger oversight committee with members of the community, with more eyes on it, with more data, that could serve us better.
But I guess I'm asking, how did the prior process not serve us well? I understand some people may not have liked the decision. In any, I imagine, boundary choices, there are winners or losers, or people who like or dislike it. But as best you recall, since you're proposing it, was there something in that process that the public felt they weren't told of, or that there wasn't the requisite public hearing meetings? Or I'm just trying to understand what we're fixing.
I'm not necessarily speaking to the prior rebounding. That's not agendized. I'm talking about what I've seen with what just occurred with Pima and Echo with the phase one, and that's why I'm bringing something forward to try and come alongside us to build more trust in the community. And I just think it's something we need. We're moving right into rebounding, and what do we know as the five of us? We need more eyes on it. More community members are asking to be involved. This has been successful in other districts.
So
This is what I'm
one of my
presenting.
questions, as I read the MESA policy, the committee has no responsibility for school closures. And as I read this policy, this committee would have no responsibility for school closure decisions. And you had previously articulated this as partly addressing what you felt were shortcomings in the recommendation of those school closures. So is your intent for this to cover school closures or not?
My intent for this is for long-term planning.
Does that
Planning of
include
what?
school closures?
Planning of what we plan to do with our school sites, what we plan to do with our boundaries. Instead of being reactive, I'm looking for ways to be proactive and not fall into what just happened to us.
So again, I think there's a difference of opinion of whether what happened was actually good regular order, where a professional recommendation was made, community hearings happened, we ultimately made a difficult decision, we obviously heard a lot from the families affected. There are also a multiple of those families who I hear from that think we made the right decision and felt like the board generally approached it well. So it's not obvious to me that there's anything in what we just did that needed to be fixed. I understand you may think differently, but I guess what I'm calling out, and one reason why I might recommend that we have more than one read, is as I read this policy, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. McLennan, this policy would not give the committee the mandate to make recommendations or review school closure decisions. It only would be triggered when there's a need to do reboundering after a school closure decision. I could be wrong about that, but that's how I'm reading it and how I read Macy's.
Madam President, Dr. Patinsky, the purpose as designated in this item, I don't know if IT can scroll down a little bit because there was some more definitive, the purposes are listed, thank you, right there. So it would be to gather community input on the boundaries, provide recommendations regarding proposed changes to school attendance boundaries, and long-range recommendations to future school sites. So I don't know if that is meant to encompass in that fourth bullet. The long-range planning recommendations could potentially be a planning recommendation to close or repurpose. But
well, I mean, I read it to be future school sites, like what we're adding, not what we're subtracting.
I think it could be read either way, regardless of the boundary, the committee established, the board would still need to go through the statutory process for school closure that you just endured. So if you do delegate to a committee that initial work to look at that long-range planning, you could modify this language to include or not include school closures, but regardless of what you do, you cannot abdicate that statutory responsibility.
Understood. Thank you.
I think one option, sort of a middle ground, is to use the ability we have with BDE to set up a board committee of sort of a scaffolding, a structure of this committee, set it up with the goal of determining the viability of that group, what its goals should be. So basically to set up a committee to say, because I think having it say, we're going to put it in the policy that it exists and it's a permanent thing, I'm not convinced that's a needed thing. Again, I want community input, so please don't read those two things differently. But to create a committee now and say, let's get the community input on the future planning. Some of these things need to be a little more specific on the wording. Does it include suggestions advising on closures, on moving, swapping, repurposing? I think those all can be included, but that would help to be a very prescriptive goal of this committee, going back to BDE that says, let's have a committee, have a set of goals, vote on setting it up. When those goals are achieved, be done. So say, it takes us, 5 months of having meetings and saying, here's what, I think that's great input to have. I'm not convinced we need to codify a planning boundary and advisory committee in the policy today. That seems like we're getting way ahead of ourselves. But I really do appreciate the community input. I want the same thing.
Okay, well, I obviously believe that we do need this, that it's not short-term, that this is something that could benefit us long-term, and there's a motion on the table, so we can vote on it, and then I would ask that you bring back your proposal under BDE for the next meeting.
Dr. Menzel?
So I appreciate the conversation. I would point out a couple of things that I think should be considered as it relates to the proposal in front of us. Building on what Vice President Sharkey said, as a permanent committee, what this doesn't have that the audit committee does is specific talents desired by the board in order to be able to do the work, right? So the way this is structured, there are 10 people, 2 appointed each by a board, each board member gets to appoint 2. There are no criteria for who those people are. So you could theoretically end up with 10 people that are all from the Chaparral learning community because we've not said that we want to have diverse representation from the district. We've not talked about what specific expertise the individuals of this Planning and Boundary Design Committee would have that is going to lend confidence that it's gathering the information that the board's expecting from the policy that's here. The Audit Committee goes further in saying what specific skill sets we're looking for in order to be able to serve that function. So I have a concern that we've not defined specifically, which opens it up to what could be arbitrary. Not saying that it would be malicious in intent, it just ill-defined from this perspective. Secondly, I think the conversation about board committees is really important, and if the board decides to appoint a committee, we'll work to support it per governing board policy. I would submit that with respect to the current PIMA conversation, that if we adopted a policy tonight, we have to start over with that process, which means we won't be able to meet our timeline of February 10th to let the families know who are waiting on what their enrollment decision is going to be with respect to what the new boundaries for their children will be. So that becomes part of the challenge if we delay on that. On a go-forward basis, I agree with Board Member Carney that as we're looking into Phase 2 and the options that are there, there's going to be a lot of conversations. And so whether it's a board-appointed committee or we convene a committee like we do on Committee Hub and invite a lot more people to the table, I think we need 2 committees, not 1, in order to be able to get input from the community with respect to those next level recommendations. But I'm concerned that this needs, if it's going to be adopted, you need to have some expectation of what the criteria is, what's the expertise of the people you're appointing. And I do believe you can accomplish something similar through BDE, and in BDE, it has a requirement for identifying the charter and some of the other things so that it would add meat to the bones.
I would like to respond to that. I mean, we're 5 professional individuals. I think we would make good choices on who would represent us on that committee. So I don't agree that you have to have a certain set of skills. I see that you created the PIMA Boundary Committee, and all you're looking for is parents. So why would it be any different with this?
Dr. Potensky?
So like Governing Board Member Sharkey, I think it's critical, and I think it's a lesson learned from Phase 1 that we have, I'll say committees, plural, that are involved and that they're inclusive of the community and that they create a venue for the community to learn and engage and not have it feel as sudden as I know Phase 1 may have felt for some members. That said, I would much prefer to use our existing policies to accomplish that. I think it allows it to be dynamic. I think it allows us to design it specifically to the particular boundary or related topic that we're addressing. I worry that I don't even know who would staff this. I mean, just speaking as a CEO of a company, it's like easy to say these things and then you have to actually do it and implement it and select it and staff it. And that's just a lot of work for what I think actually introduces a lot of rigidity to the current process as opposed to just staying very dynamic with the current process. So I don't support this, but I want to be clear, I do support and expect that we will use inclusive community committees much more actively in Phase 2 than we did in Phase 1 for the reasons that I think you articulated well, Ms. Carney.
Go ahead, Ms. Carney.
Last thing I'll say is, yes, I would like this to have been done in October when I asked for it. We would be in a much better place to, work with it. And I decided I kind of got pushed in a hole, and I appreciate Ms. McLennan for working with me quickly on this and presenting it tonight because we're out of time. So this is all that I could do, and I do think it's something very important for our district to move us forward positively.
We have a motion ready for a vote unless there's anybody else who has a comment. All right, it's been moved to approve the modified JC policy as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Nay.
No. The motion fails 3-2. Let's go to item E. Action to schedule public hearings regarding adjustment of boundaries for students residing in Pima Elementary School attendance area pursuant to ARS 15-341-37. Dr. Menzel?
As Ms. McLennan noted on the closure piece, there's also Arizona statute with respect to redrawing boundaries. And so we have a proposal to hold the required public hearing on February 2nd. We hope that all governing board members would be able to be in attendance. We have recruited members to serve on a committee. That recruitment process is still ongoing. We believe that we don't have to have a separate town hall, that the February 2nd meeting could accomplish both purposes. And we've been starting the process of identifying options so that when the committee convenes and then ultimately we have the hearing, we're not going from a blank slate, but we're really looking at what the potential boundary options are that make the most sense given the board's decision to close and repurpose Pima Elementary School. So it's our recommendation that we schedule that for February 2nd so that we can have a recommendation prepared for governing board approval on February 10th. The time is of the essence because we have to get postcard mailers out to all those in the affected zip codes. That's a part of our notice requirement so that not only families of current students, but also property owners are all aware of this potential and have an opportunity to weigh in at that hearing on February 2nd. And so it's our recommendation that we set that date for the hearing.
So February 2nd is only, 4 weeks away. Can you walk us through then, again, in a lesson learned from phase 1, where things felt rushed? When will the community actually know the specific proposal that you're bringing forward to be able to then review it, research it, maybe give feedback on alternatives? Like, can you walk through that?
Sure.
timeline
Dr.
a little
Bono
more
has
clearly?
been working tirelessly on this, so I'm going to let her talk about the timelines that we've identified.
Thank you, Dr. Menzel, Governing Board Member, Governing President, Ms. Dr. Lewis, Dr. Batinsky. So we have the committee dates scheduled. The first meeting is January 14th next week, with a follow-up on January 22nd to review the proposals. We've been working with the demographer on maps, and we have some drafts. We sent out the committee hub information. It went out preliminarily the week before break. It went out again to families through Parent Square via the communications department today. It's going out again tomorrow. So far, we've had one parent who has expressed interest in serving on the committee with us. The committee consists of, if I may look at the calendar invite to make sure I've captured everybody, it's a wide net of district representation, along with, as we look forward to having parent representation. It is myself, it is David Jacobson, our Director of Transportation, Matt Patzloff, the principal of Pima, Maggie Finan, the principal of, Navajo, sorry, thank you. Maggie Finan, wanted to make sure you're all still awake. Maggie Finan, the principal of Hohokam, Kelly Perry, principal of Yavapai, Dr. Praninsky, Director of Federal Programming, Dr. Bachna from our Student Information, Principal Hodo, principal of Pima, Sarah Torione, our Director of Gifted, Brooke Williams, our Director of Special Education, and then the parents who will be representing. We will be sharing with them on the 14th. These are some of the options. There are 4 options right now that the demographer has shared with us. In these options, we'll be able to see how many students are impacted, exactly which students would be impacted, and then our hope is on the 15th to post those on our website to get public, to make sure the public knows where, what the options will be that will be coming towards for the public hearing. Did that answer the question?
Sort of, because the
Okay.
second committee meeting you said was after the 15th.
Correct. That one is if needed, if we get feedback. So as we post those maps on the 15th, we will be getting, I would imagine, some great Let's Talk feedback, some feedback from the board, from Dr. Menzel, from cabinet. We might want to take that information, bring it back to the committee to say, are we missing a piece? Is there information we perhaps need more of? Are we happy with these choices? And then finalize to bring to cabinet and subsequently the board on February 2nd what those options are.
Yeah, it just doesn't, again, I understand that the hearing, like the order of operations is coming again from last time, and that the hearing is not the decision, and it's just a sense that you were about to turn on your microphone, Ms. McLennan. But if I'm living as a community member, I hear about something, and then all of a sudden, I've got less than a week or so before there's a hearing on it, and that feels very tight.
20 days from the time the options will be posted on the website to the public hearing. January 15th to February.
Maybe, unless you meet again as a committee and change.
No, our hope is when we first meet, the first meeting on January 14th, that next day, our options will be on the website for public display.
Okay.
The maps, all the maps with the boundaries of where the rezoning would be, the rebounding pursuant to board policy JC.
And then when does the 4 go down to 1?
Mrs. McLennan, I'll let you handle that.
Thank you very much, Madam President, Mr. Sharkey. And Dr. Patitsky, I agree with you that the process is still to the statutory process that has been created. It is similar to what you do with school closings in that you have to give this requisite notice. Although the statute does not specify how long, you have to have a public hearing, you have to have the maps posted, but the purpose would be to get public input on February 2nd, and then to make a decision to go from 4 to 1 on February 10th. That would be when the board would decide which of the 4 options, 5 options, 2 options that are eventually whittled down, you would make a recommendation from. And I would also advise that in other matters in which school districts have considered school closures, it hasn't been a bifurcated process. Your district administration wanted this board to consider the closures before you went to this process. So in your planning, you may want to think about whether in the future you want to do it in a bifurcated manner or do it all in one fell swoop. But the time frame, I have seen shorter time frames for the consideration of this issue in terms of getting public input, because if you did it in a school closure and repurposing and boundary adjustments, you only are required to give the public that 10 days of notice prior to the public hearing.
I'm not going to follow my sword on it, but it does seem rushed. It does, I don't know if that was board schedules to attend the hearing, but it does feel like the hearing should have another 2 weeks or so distance between the committee making its information available and the community having time to digest it and be more capable of an informed contribution at the hearing.
So there are 2 weeks. So if the committee meets on the 14th and you've posted on the 15th, and then you have the hearing on the 2nd, you have 20 days, almost 3 weeks, between the time that the maps are proposed for the community to look at it. The committee will have reviewed it and given their feedback. And so it's an iterative process. And I would ask the board to consider, at the end of the day, the implication for the people who are impacted by the boundary change, largely the families who are waiting to make their decision about where to send their kids to school next year. And they're waiting for the board to make a decision. The people who are interested in this conversation, and we did this when we redrew the boundaries back in 2022, 23, we had the same hearing. You have a number of people, I don't know if it was 25, 30, you had people show up for the hearing. We had people who engaged in other conversations that we had, but you can extend the timeline. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have more people who participate. So I think the better job we do at getting information out, sending the postcard, and not delaying our decision, because if we delay, we either schedule a separate meeting of the board to make this standalone decision, or we make that decision on March 10th. Now we've pushed for families that period of uncertainty for a much longer period of time, and I'm not sure what the benefit is based on the last reboundary process that we went through. There are, in my mind, a couple of fundamental decisions. Do you maintain the current configuration of the Coronado learning community, or do you draw part of the Pima boundary into the Saguaro learning community? Those are the fundamental decisions, and then within that, if you're keeping the Coronado learning community intact, there's probably a couple of maps that allow you to do that, to balance how students are distributed. And if you're going to consider redrawing the boundary so that some of what's currently in Coronado now feeds into Saguaro, that impacts a much wider zip code. So those are the substantive conversations. And I believe that if we get to the point where the board doesn't feel comfortable with the recommendation following the hearing, they don't have to make the decision on February 10th. That could be postponed because you don't feel good about the information that we have. So there is a way to postpone and have more dialogue if we go through this process and you get enough feedback from community saying, we don't think this is going to work. You could delay. I'm just reluctant to do so at this juncture, given what we know, and we do have, multiple weeks in between each step in the process.
Between 2.2 and 2.10, what is the body or the people that are recommending the 4 down to 1?
Madam President, Mr. Sharkey, the decision between the 4 options would be your board decision. Your administration will, in all likelihood, recommend one of the 4, but all 4 would be on the table.
Is that you as an individual? Is that a group?
No, that would be, so we've got our team internally, and it would be based on the feedback that we've received from the committee, from the hearing, looking at the transportation implications, and...
Sure,
and
sorry, that team is, just so I'm aware
so
of.
Christine Bono, David Jacobson...
Dr. Paninsky, all the principals who would be
Yeah, from
impacted,
the
Dr.
learning
Williams,
communities.
Ms. Torion.
That's special ed gifted.
And 3 parents. And if we get more parents that are interested, there's...
On
it
that
doesn't-
committee that
we
was
have as many.
formed on the, by
Committee,
the 14th.
yep, committee hub has been
Okay, thank you.
posted.
The other thing that a delay impacts is our ability to address the staffing concerns, because we can't give assurances to staff where they're going to go when we don't know where the kids are being reboundaried to. So that also creates an extended period of angst for staffing decisions.
Any other comments? All right. Ms. Carney?
Well, I could do this with my vote, but I had said yes, that on the original date that was sent to us, that I was available, and then I'm not available on February 2nd, so.
Thank you. Will it be recorded? Is it something we can record?
Yes, all of the meetings will be recorded.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'll move to, for the action to schedule public hearing regarding adjustment of boundaries for students residing in Pima Elementary School attendance area pursuant to ARS 1534137.
Madam President, can you add on February 2nd, please?
For February 2nd.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
No.
Motion passes 4-1. Thank you. Once again, just part of the tough part of our role, isn't it? All right, we are now at item 11, future items. Board members may propose topics for future consideration. Anyone like to chime in? Dr. Potensky?
I have 2. The first is I want to get back to algebra. I want to understand how we're doing, the kinds of programs that we're investing in, the IXL adoption, what kind of velocity we're seeing in terms of students engaging in skill development, ideally with some dimensionality in terms of grade levels and schools. But I think it's been uncomfortably long since we've talked academics, and algebra is obviously our big goal. The other is, I don't know if this is a topic or an overlay to when we engage in phase 2 kinds of discussions, but something that I felt was lacking in phase 1. I know when I've ever had to move office headquarters, that's always a very sensitive thing. You're messing with your employees' commute. And so we would calculate, okay, this new location, how does it affect the median commute drive? How does it, what's the extremes, the 25th, the 75th percentile in that case, and really understand the net difference that a change in office would be. And similarly, as we think about, how do Cheyenne, if Cheyenne's program was at Copper Ridge, I have no idea whether, given where Cheyenne families live, on average, that would reduce the commute time, increase the commute. I mean, in any given family, it'll be all of the above. But I'd like us to get to that level of spatial, I don't know if that's spatial analysis, but I'd like to get to that level of understanding as we think through one of the key areas of feedback in phase one, which is how the movement of a child affects the family, you know, and their commute distance to a school. So those are my 2 items.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, that brings us.
Sorry, I do.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. Thank you, President Lewis. The board has not delegated authority to Member Sharkey to be presenting data to the public and district employees against policies BBAA and BCA. So if this is to continue, please put this on the next agenda for a board vote.
Anybody else? Any response? Okay. Dates of upcoming meetings. Our next meeting is January 20th at 6 p.m. It's a special governing board meeting. It'll be at MDA. And I make a motion to adjourn. I request a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're unanimous at 9:00 p.m.